Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to drift, slowly and silently, along the final breath of a star? Not in haste, not in fear, but in deep, restful awe, gliding gently through space, where time slows, where everything softens, and where even the dying light is beautiful. Tonight, I invite you to leave the noise behind. Let your body settle, your thoughts quiet, and your breath become slow and deep. Relax and listen to my calm voice. We're going to travel together, unhurried and free, through the ancient spirals of stars that have reached the end of their journey. We are not in a rush. We are here to float, to witness, and to drift through the most peaceful corners of the universe. We begin our journey near the edge of an old elliptical galaxy, where time seems suspended and the stars, having lived long lives, now ease into their softest moments. Around us, dying red giants pulse like warm lanterns. Their outer layers peel away in curling spirals of light and gas, creating luminous paths that wind out into the darkness like celestial ribbons. We guide our vessel into one of these spirals, slowly, quietly. The gas is thin, glowing in shades of lavender and pale rose, and as we pass through it, we seem to hear a whisper, not a voice, but a sensation, a memory of the star's long and noble life, echoing through its final dance. These spirals stretch out over light years, unwinding so gently that they appear frozen. But we are moving closer, deeper, drawn into the quiet choreography of a star's last breath. Inside this spiral path, all is still. The light glimmers against the ship's surface, painting it with soft reflections. No sound exists here, but the hum of your breath and the soft resonance of the cosmos. A gentle pulse, a cosmic lullaby in the background. The core of the star, now a white dwarf, shines in the distance, like a single pearl resting within a silken spiral shell. We do not rush toward it. We simply drift along the curvature, following its slow release of energy, like a feather caught in a quiet breeze. Each moment in this space feels suspended. Outside the windows, motes of cosmic dust drift like snowflakes, caught in the spiraling wind of a sun's last sigh. And as we float further, the spiral opens wider, guiding us to the next star waiting to share its story. The spiral we've been drifting through gradually fades behind us, its soft colors dissolving into the vast dark like the memory of a song long since sung. But there is no emptiness in this darkness, only stillness and peace. As our vessel glides forward, propelled by nothing but gentle momentum, we pass through a corridor of silence between stars. This part of the galaxy holds no bright suns, no bursts of heat or motion. Here dwell the elders of the universe, ancient stars that have finished their time at the center of solar systems, and now linger in the dusk of their own light. And among them float their final gifts to the cosmos. Planetary nebulae, the softly glowing remnants of their outer shells, cast into space like floating veils of color. We choose one, barely visible in the distance, an ethereal bloom suspended in shadow. As we approach, the ship begins to slow, not by force, but by respect, as if honoring a sacred stillness. Before us unfurls a shell of light, delicate, luminous, and hauntingly beautiful. The nebula is vast, larger than our minds can measure, but it expands with such gentleness that it appears weightless. At its center lies the origin, a white dwarf no larger than Earth, but dense beyond comprehension. A stone of memory glowing with a pale blue fire. It pulses faintly, its energy slowly dispersing into the nebula it created. The gas and dust surrounding it drift outward in patterns of perfect geometry, rings within rings, arcs bending like the petals of a slowly opening flower. The colors shift subtly as we enter, soft lilacs, glimmers of seafoam green, faint oranges like the last glow of a setting sun. Nothing here is sharp or sudden. All forms are softened by the light, blurred at the edges like dreams fading into sleep. As we glide deeper, the ship's lights dim automatically, surrendering to the glow that surrounds us. We are no longer observers, We are part of the scene, suspended within it like a dust mote in a shaft of morning light. And though we are light years from Earth, a sense of quiet familiarity settles over us. Perhaps it's the way the nebula seems to breathe, its layers expanding outward in slow motion, or the way the colors ripple gently, as though stirred by some invisible current. We pass through one such ripple, and it feels almost like stepping through time. The gas here carries within it atoms that were once deep inside the heart of the star, fused over billions of years from hydrogen to helium, from helium to carbon, in the star's long, slow burning. Now those elements are free, no longer bound, drifting outward to become part of something new. Someday, long after the white dwarf fades into a cold, dark ember, these same particles may help shape new worlds, or fall into the gravity of another sun, or form the core of some distant moon. But for now, they wait, and we wait with them, floating, breathing, listening to the hush of it all. The universe in its quietest corners teaches us how to be still. Beyond the gently unfolding nebula we just drifted through lies an even quieter expanse, a region where stars have long since dimmed, and their remains hover in the space between what was and what may become. This is the interstellar graveyard, where starlight lingers not in brightness but in texture and glow. The silence here is deeper, but never empty. It hums with the echoes of lives lived slowly. The navigation panel shows no clear stars ahead, no pressing direction, only fields of faint dust and shimmering clouds lit from within by distant radiation. And so we drift forward with no destination, only intention. Out here, the cosmos asks nothing of us but stillness. The ship, responding to the calm, engages its soft drift mode, sails extended like wings catching solar winds that are barely a whisper. We glide onward, weightless, as if dreaming with our eyes open. To our left, in the far distance, something begins to shimmer, a faint, spiraling glow like a ghost of a galaxy. But as we come closer, we realize it is not a galaxy at all. It is a remnant cloud, illuminated by the dying energy of a once massive star that collapsed long ago. Not a violent end, but one of extraordinary grace. The cloud stretches across dozens of light years, thin and diffuse, yet still elegant, like frost on glass or the feathers of a sleeping bird. We enter its outer veil, and the ship slows again, respectful. The particles in this region are older than any world we know. We pass through sheets of light so thin they barely touch us, yet they glow with subtle color, pale gold, twilight violet, and hues that defy any known name. These are the ashes of giants, massive stars that burned bright and fast, now return to the dust from which they came. As we float deeper, faint structures emerge. Within the cloud, tendrils twist like the delicate roots of a tree. Only this tree stretches for light years, and its branches reach in every direction, forming patterns not unlike veins beneath translucent skin. Every turn of the spiral carries some trace of symmetry, like a rhythm frozen into the dust. This is the silent art of dying stars, their parting gifts to the galaxy. Not destruction, but formation. And even now, new shapes are forming. Pockets of gravity pull the dust together, softly, secretly. One day, this place will give birth to stars again. But that day is far in the future. For now, it sleeps. And we too are part of this sleep. Our ship becomes almost invisible within the cloud, its silhouette blurred by the drifting light. We pass through corridors of shadow and light, each flickering just slightly, as if acknowledging our presence. It is not cold here, nor warm. It is simply still, and in that stillness, we feel the deep patience of the universe. We are used to thinking of death as an end, but here it is simply a pause, a transformation, a return to silence so complete that it becomes sacred. We listen, not with ears, but with our senses wide open, and we begin to hear what lies beneath the quiet. A resonance, low and slow, like the exhale of a sleeping titan. It is not menacing, it is comforting. We are safe. We are wrapped in light and dust, in memory and possibility. No time passes here, not as we know it, but eventually, through the mist ahead, a faint blue flicker calls to us. A new path awaits, another spiral, another farewell, another gentle voyage through the winding layers of celestial dreams. But we do not rush, not here. We wait until we're ready, and then, with soft propulsion and open hearts, we continue forward, deeper still into the cosmic quiet. The pale blue flicker that had appeared through the drifting veil of dust slowly grows brighter, not with the piercing clarity of a young star, but with the cool, steady shimmer of something ancient and enduring. We follow it at a gentle pace, our vessel gliding on the soft tides of stellar winds. All around us, the remnants of long-faded stars seem to part, allowing us passage through this quiet corridor of the cosmos. The glow ahead pulses faintly, slow and even, like the rhythm of a sleeping heart. And as we draw closer, it becomes clear that we are approaching a very rare kind of relic. A remnant, unlike the elegant white dwarfs we've seen before. This, now revealed, is a blue planetary nebula, shaped not by age alone, but by subtle magnetic forces and slow cosmic wind. It spirals outward in tightly braided threads of light, like a soft-spun cocoon unraveling in every direction. This nebula is delicate in structure, but vast in reach. We pass through its outer shell as if drifting through moonlight poured across a still ocean. The gas here is thinner than breath, yet it glows as if illuminated from within, wrapping everything in a faint sapphire haze. The blue is not static. It shimmers with gentle gradations of color, shifting from ice to indigo, from deep violet to the faintest blue-white gleam. The heart of it is not visible yet, hidden within layers of curling gas and luminous vapor. But we feel its presence, a soft gravity pulling at us. Not an urgency, but an invitation. The spiral shape is tighter here, more deliberate. As we move along its winding arcs, we seem to orbit beauty itself, an invisible center of peace that draws all things near. The passage deepens, all sense of distance begins to blur. It is hard to say how far we have come, or how long we have been here. Time folds within these spirals, and the stars beyond are muted, reduced to faint glimmers behind the shifting veil of gas. We are no longer travelers on a ship, but something smaller, gentler, like a grain of dust drifting through a shaft of light in a vast cathedral. The nebula hums faintly, not in sound, but in sensation. Our instruments register the rhythm, slow pulses of heat and magnetism, repeating every few minutes like the heartbeat of an enormous, slumbering being. But there is no danger here, only the steady reminder that even the dying still breathe, and even the smallest remnants of a once massive star can hold grace within them. Now, as we turn along the curvature of the inner spiral, the central remnant comes into view. It is a neutron star, small, impossibly dense, and wrapped in faint rings of electric blue light. Once the core of a sun perhaps 10 times the size of ours, it collapsed inward in its final moment, compressing matter into a single sphere no wider than a city. But unlike its violent creation, it now rests in perfect stillness, spinning slowly within the quiet cocoon of its own making. It does not flash or roar or burn. It simply is. Its magnetic field hums gently against the passing particles of its nebula, creating faint bands of light that curve outward like echoes from a bell that was rung long ago. This is what remains of a Titan, and it is beautiful in its peace. Our ship, sensing the stillness, lowers all systems to minimal function. Lights dim, engines hush. Inside, we are weightless, floating in near silence. Outside, the spiral turns slowly, almost imperceptibly, as if it could go on unwinding forever. The glow reflects on the ship's surface in ripples. If you press your palm to the glass, you might feel nothing at all, only the illusion of texture, the dream of warmth left behind by a long-departed flame. We are in a place beyond language now, beyond time, and here, it is enough to be, to observe, to drift quietly through the pale blue light and remember that even the stars, mighty as they are, end not in fury, but in softness and surrender, and beauty too vast for words. We remain here for a while, letting the pulses wash over us, breathing slow. The nebula has no voice, but if it did, it might be humming a lullaby. One woven from light, stretched across centuries. One we're just now beginning to hear. We float along the inner arc, watching the dust dance in slow spirals, until we find a natural exit point in the nebula's weave. As we ease outward, the light grows thinner, the space between threads of gas widens, and stars begin to reappear, small steady points of gold and white, blinking softly in the distance. We leave the blue glow behind us like a dream slipping back into the subconscious. But its peace remains with us. The spiral turns on, slow and eternal, and we, quiet as ever, drift forward toward the next story, the next spiral, the next sigh of a dying star. Beyond the fading blues of the neutron star's nebula, we glide once more into open stillness. Black, quiet, limitless. The space ahead holds no immediate sign of light, no beckoning glow. But we are not searching. We are listening, drifting, and the universe in its patience always reveals something to those who move slowly enough. In this vast and quiet gulf, our instruments begin to pick up a subtle signal, a soft infrared pulse, rhythmic and gentle, coming from a location unmarked on any chart. No danger, no urgency, just an invitation, subtle and slow, like a whisper across the dark. We adjust course without sound, shifting our path ever so slightly toward the signal, and let the ship coast forward like a leaf caught in the breath of the cosmos. As we approach, a faint shimmer begins to form. First a flicker, then a glow, then an intricate, almost architectural structure rising out of the darkness. It looks like a cathedral made of ice and dust, towering arcs and crystalline spirals radiating outward from a central point. But this is no artificial construct. We are entering a crystalline remnant, a very rare form of white dwarf, so ancient and cold that the carbon within its core has begun to crystallize into a diamond-like structure. What was once fire and fusion has become clarity and light. The dying star, having released all its outer layers millennia ago, now rests as a glowing crystalline sphere suspended in a soft cocoon of frozen gases and dust. The air around it seems to shimmer with faint prisms of light, casting delicate refractions onto the dark canvas of space. We drift slowly into this field, and everything becomes gentler. Our movements, our breath, even our thoughts. Inside the crystalline cloud, time bends again. Each mote of dust glows faintly, catching light from the diamond core and scattering it like a million fireflies frozen in place. The cloud is denser than most, but not threatening. It feels like floating through a slow snowfall of stars. The central remnant itself glows with a soft inner radiance, pale and steady, more like moonlight than fire. As we orbit gently around it, we begin to see the intricate facets formed within its structure, layers of compressed carbon, aligned in near-perfect harmony, silent and eternal. Our ship's scanners translate its internal geometry into tones, and we let the sound play through the vessel. It's not music, exactly, but something like it. A slow, harmonious hum that seems to echo through the soul more than the ears. Each vibration feels like a lullaby, carried through stone and starlight. We let ourselves float there, wrapped in the crystalline haze, for what could be hours or moments. It's impossible to measure time in a place so free from movement. The ship rocks gently as it moves through the luminous debris, each piece refracting the central glow into different colors: faint pinks, icy greens, hints of gold and silver. It's like watching starlight pass through stained glass, endless and ever-changing. You may find your thoughts slowing here, matching the pace of the universe, each idea unfolding like a slow pedal in the dark, and that's as it should be. These stars, even in their final sleep, have something to teach us about stillness, about transformation, and about the quiet kind of beauty that never asks to be noticed. Eventually, we reach the far edge of the crystalline field. The ship's hull carries a soft sheen of dust now, tiny frozen particles caught in our slow movement through the cloud, glowing faintly on the metal like frost. Behind us, the diamond core recedes into the dark, pulsing softly like a heart at rest. Ahead, the void opens once more, deep and empty and calm. We engage the slow drift, and the engines quiet to a near whisper. There is no rush, no ending, just the journey through the soft, winding echoes of lives long lived. The stars are waiting, and so are we. We leave the crystalline remnant behind, watching as its diamond heart fades into the shadows, its light caught and carried on the dust still trailing gently through the ship's wake. The stars around us are quiet once more, sparse and still. But now we are entering a region the navigators of old called the Lantern Field. Not a place marked by brilliant suns or active systems, but by a slow ballet of cooling stars in their twilight. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of dim white dwarfs drift here in a quiet cluster, their heat long since faded to a pale glimmer, their presence barely felt unless you are looking carefully. But we are not in a hurry. We are always looking carefully. These white dwarfs are spread across a massive area of space, floating like soft beads on a thread invisible to the eye. Some glow faintly in blue, others in the dull white of spent heat. A few, older still, are nearly indistinguishable from the blackness around them, like embers sleeping beneath ash. But the paths they once carved through their galaxies remain, long coiled trails of gas and dust, still gently spinning in the silence. It's through one of these spirals that we now begin to move, an especially wide arc of silvery haze stretching across light years. As we ease into its curve, we begin to notice tiny flashes along its length, distant reflections, slow pulses, echoes of what once was. These aren't warnings, they're memories. This spiral is a ghost of light left behind by a sun that has since fallen into perfect stillness. We move through it like a feather on a breeze. Outside the ship's windows, the haze becomes more defined. It's not a solid ribbon, but a braided structure, interwoven strands of gas that seem to rise and fall gently in waves, like the surface of a calm sea. Within it, fragments of ancient worlds float, small, weathered asteroids, particles of former planets now reduced to mineral mist. Some pieces glint as we pass by, catching the faint light of the white dwarf far behind us. Others drift in such perfect silence, they seem as if they've never moved at all. The spiral opens into a broad arc, and here the gas is thin enough that we can see the surrounding field of dwarf stars clearly. Dozens of them, scattered across space, each one glowing faintly like lanterns set adrift on a cosmic sea. No two are the same. Some pulse slowly, others are motionless, but all of them speak the same soft language of peace. We slow the ship and let it coast. There's no reason to rush. We float between two spirals now, one above, one below, like gliding through the pages of an unwritten story. These stars may be forgotten by time, no longer powering systems or warming planets, but their presence is still profound. Each one once burned with a fire fierce enough to sculpt worlds, to host life, to shape gravity. Now, they offer rest, their spirals once driven by heat and motion, have slowed into soft arcs that seem more like dreams than debris. And it is within those dreams that we drift unseen, untouched, at peace. The stars cradle us in their quiet remnants, and the universe breathes around us. Ahead, a curve in the spiral reveals a structure unlike the others. A large shell of gas forming a nearly perfect sphere, lit faintly from within. This is a recombination bubble, formed long after the star's heat faded, when its final atoms cooled and recombined into neutral gas. The light here is soft, golden gray, like the last light before sleep. It surrounds us gently, casting shadows that stretch long and slow across the ship's floor. We float through the center of the bubble, and for a moment, everything seems to stop, even motion, even thought. Just the ship, the quiet, and the slow turn of the spiral. A place suspended between breath and silence. And so we rest here for a while, breathing, watching, letting the light and dark play across the walls of the ship like candlelight on still water. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just this, just here. A quiet spiral, a sleeping star, a moment between everything. As we leave the recombination bubble behind, the light begins to thin into long strands, wisps that twist gently like breath in cold air. The space ahead appears darker now, but not empty. It is woven with what the old navigators once called ghost light, the last visible threads of fading starlight, stretching across impossible distances. We follow these threads, tracing them through space like a river of memory. The stars around us grow fewer, but their presence remains in these silken trails. Remnants of soft explosions, the diffusion of dying light, the scattering of ancient atmospheres into the void. We are entering a realm of star echo. The matter here no longer burns, yet it continues to shape the dark with its silent drift. Our ship glides slowly between two such threads, fine lines of dim luminescence, drifting like mist. They sway gently, not from wind but from the pressure of light particles, radiation that continues its soft push through space. Each thread seems delicate enough to vanish at a glance, yet they have endured for thousands, sometimes millions of years. As we pass through them, they shimmer slightly, bending in our wake like grass bowing beneath a breeze. Within these faint tendrils are the final breaths of red giants. Helium, oxygen, trace elements that once roared in the hearts of stars and now glow quietly in their surrender. The colors shift subtly, barely perceptible: faint copper, soft lavender, hues like old paper held up to the sun. This is the light that no longer tries to shine. It simply lingers. Further in, we approach a convergence, a point where multiple threads twist together into a spiral ring. This spiral is more fragile than any we've seen before. It isn't thick with gas or scattered with debris. It is a sheer, transparent veil, coiled slowly in layers of almost invisible light. As we enter it, the stars behind us begin to blur, their light refracted by the faint curvature of the spiral shell. We feel as though we've passed through a mirror of air. Inside, time stretches again. The ship's sensors report a gravitational softness, a near total stillness of mass. Here we are not moving forward so much as being drawn inward, gently, as though the universe itself is inviting us to listen more closely. At the center of this soft spiral, there is no remnant star, no glowing core. Only the afterimage of what once was, a region where a star had lived, expanded, shed its shell, and finally faded to cold invisibility. A black dwarf, we suspect. A theoretical state. A white dwarf so old, so cold, that it emits no light at all. None have ever been observed directly. And yet, we feel the shape of one here. Not in vision, but in silence. An absence so precise it defines everything around it. The spiral remembers. Its curves still echo the star's gravity. Its last pulses, its long sigh into the dark. We float near the center for a long time, gazing at the space where a sun once stood. and the hush here feels sacred, like standing in the ruins of a temple that was never built. Even the ship's systems fall quiet, dimming almost in reverence. Then, ever so slowly, we turn outward, carried on the last arcs of the spiral's reach. Each coil takes us farther from the memory, and the ghost light begins to thin, stretching into lines too faint to follow. Behind us, the spiral closes, not by force but by fading. It dissolves like smoke, like dream stuff, until it is no longer there, and in front of us, a vast dark plain opens wide. A place of almost total stillness, where even ghost light seldom passes. But we are not afraid. We carry the echoes with us, the hush of crystalline cores, the breath of nebulae, the memory of spirals wrapped in blue. All of them drift with us now, like threads in a single great tapestry, slowly unrolling as we move forward. Beyond the soft red glow of the Ember constellation, we drift into a corridor of space not marked on any map, where even the navigation systems go still, waiting for something to appear. This place is quieter than anything we've yet experienced. Even the ship seems to hum more gently here, its systems recognizing that this is not a place to measure or control, but to feel. After some time, maybe moments, maybe hours, a subtle golden glow begins to emerge in the distance. At first it appears like a mist, then a field, then a spiral so slow and wide it seems less like movement and more like breath. We have entered what's known to ancient stargazers as the Amber Drift, a region formed by the remnants of multiple overlapping nebulae, all spun from the outer layers of red supergiants that died long, long ago. The light here is unique. It doesn't shine, it glows, softly and steadily, as if it were made of something warm and alive. As we enter the spiral's edge, we're met with vast clouds of golden dust, so fine and evenly spread that the space around us takes on the color of honey at dusk. These clouds don't block the stars behind them, they soften them, casting a golden tint over everything, like light filtering through aged glass. The dust is composed of heavy elements, iron, carbon, silicates, once forged in the deep hearts of massive stars. Now those same particles drift gently in slow orbits, waiting for time to turn again. We pass close to one glowing concentration of dust, and as we do, we see that it's not uniform, it's rippled, almost like the surface of a sleeping lake, disturbed only by the memory of movement. These spirals aren't tightly wound, they unfurl in lazy arcs, as if the stars that made them knew they had no need to hurry. The golden dust coils outward in patterns that seem more natural than deliberate, forming bridges between ancient events, supernovae that occurred far apart, yet whose remnants now touch. Within this interconnected spiral field, we begin to notice something else. Clusters of frozen rock, barely visible against the amber glow, drifting like islands in a celestial sea. These aren't planets, they're planetesimals, the rough, early shapes of worlds not yet formed. It's possible that over billions of years, the elements within this field might gather, pulled gently together, and form new stars, new solar systems. But for now, everything simply waits. It is not death, it is rest, a patient pause before the music begins again. And we are here within it, part of this slowness, this great inhalation. The ship drifts through soft swirls of dust, the particles glowing faintly on our hull before spiraling away again, never quite touching. Inside, the light has changed. Golden rays dance across the walls, refracted and scattered into a warm, soothing pattern that shifts with our motion. It feels like being wrapped in time itself. Outside, the spiral curves widen, and we can see faintly the old cores of stars that once burned in the center of each nebula. They are cool now, invisible to the eye, but their presence remains in the shape of the dust and the way the light bends as we pass. Each spiral is like a fingerprint, unique to its star, telling the story of how it lived, how it let go, and how it returned its essence to the galaxy. We slow even further, if that's possible, to observe one such spiral closely. The dust thickens into slow curls that wrap around an unseen center. Our instruments confirm it. A white dwarf lies here, its surface barely above the background temperature of space. A black dwarf in the making, colder than memory, waiting out its final transformation into complete silence. And yet, even here, even now, the dust continues to swirl in perfect harmony. The star is still shaping the world around it, not through heat or light, but through gravity, through presence. A soft, lingering gesture that says, "I was here." We circle the spiral once, gently, and then begin to pull outward again, riding along its arc until we find the edge, where the golden dust begins to thin, and the stars once more grow brighter in the distance. As we pass beyond the last tendrils of the amber drift, the light fades from gold to gray. The stars ahead twinkle faintly, their colors no longer filtered, but somehow softer for having passed through such a warm place. We carry the gold within us now, not as light, but as a memory, a slow turning, a moment of stillness, a place where even the remains of stars knew how to rest. Ahead, new spirals await, fainter perhaps, stranger, but we are in no rush. We drift onward, as we always have, gently wrapped in the quiet story of the star. As we move beyond the amber haze, the universe begins to grow quieter again. Not in absence, but in presence. The kind of hush that comes not from emptiness, but from deep stillness. The stars grow sparse once more, their light distant and cool. The ship floats gently through this twilight region, where space itself seems to thicken slightly, filled with old dust and the soft gravitational pull of ancient, forgotten systems. Somewhere in the distance, so far it barely registers on our sensors, we detect the beginnings of another spiral. This one isn't formed of light or glowing gas. No, this one is made of shadows. A spiral of cold dust and cooled iron stretching slowly through space like a coiled breath that never quite finished. This is known, in the quiet language of star cartographers, as the spiral that sleeps. It's difficult to see at first. The edges blend into the dark, and only by watching how the starlight bends can we detect the motion. The slow, circular dance of debris shaped by a collapsed star at its center. This star no longer emits light, not even in infrared. It is a true black dwarf, possibly one of the first in existence. A remnant so old that its heat is gone, its energy dispersed, and its presence now known only through gravitational ripples. And yet, around it, a spiral remains, formed by the slow, steady drift of matter that once orbited it. Rock, metal, and dust, all moving in vast arcs, held not by light but by memory. We ease the ship toward the outer rings, and as we enter the spiral's first curl, everything grows quieter still. The dust here is ancient, coarse, cold, and dark. It does not glow. It absorbs light, and yet somehow it still shimmers, not with radiance, but with movement. We glide through it slowly, letting the ship follow the curve naturally. The arcs are broad, gentle, and nearly invisible, except for how they shift the stars behind them. Some areas are denser, where fragments of former moons or asteroids still tumble in slow, lazy orbits. Others are as thin as mist, barely a trace of form. It feels as though we are inside a fossilized breath, the exhalation of a star that happened so long ago that all warmth has faded. But none of the shape has been lost. These spirals are not the product of violence. They are the long, patient unraveling of stellar memory. At the center, where light fails completely, we approach a point of utter stillness. The ship slows to a full hover. Even time seems to hesitate here. We are now directly above the place where the black dwarf rests. We cannot see it, we cannot touch it, but we feel it. Its presence bending the space around it. Not sharply, but with a soft curve like a deep indentation in a blanket. Our instruments show nothing but silence. Absolute zero in nearly all directions. And yet, this is not nothingness. This is rest at its most complete. The spiral here has almost stopped turning, but not quite. There is still motion, still a faint drift, like the slow spin of a leaf on a sleeping pond. We turn slowly, following the innermost spiral back outward. The dust thickens again, catching just enough starlight to shimmer faintly. Like frost on stone, we see patterns in the drift. Tiny eddies, gentle waves, places where the matter coils inward and outward in symmetrical rhythm. These are not random, they're echoes of the star's final pulses before it went cold. A star's last breath, carved permanently into the shape of its surroundings. Even in the absence of light, it left behind music, not heard with ears, but felt in the slow turning of the spiral. The deeper we travel through the universe, the more we learn that even silence has rhythm. As we reach the outer edge of the spiral once more, the shadows thin, the dust falls away into open space, and the stars begin to shine again in the distance. The spiral fades behind us, not in brightness, but in form. It dissolves into the vast background of the cosmos. Like a thought falling back into sleep, we emerge quietly, carrying the silence with us. A new sector opens ahead. Faint colors on the scanner, perhaps another nebula blooming in the dark. But for now, we let the engines rest. Let our breath match the slow turn of stars, and let the memory of the sleeping spiral carry us gently forward. The darkness ahead is not empty, though it pretends to be. As we glide forward, deeper into this still region of space, subtle patterns begin to reveal themselves. Not in color or sound, but in motion. The background stars bend slightly in arcs, their arrangement not quite random. Our instruments pick up micro fluctuations in gravitational flow, tiny tugs and sways, the kind that suggest we're entering a wide, slow vortex. But this is no single star spiral. This is something older, broader, more complex. What lies ahead is called the gathering spiral. A massive structure formed from the slow, overlapping paths of many stars long faded, their trails converging into a shared spiral that spins with the patience of entire epochs. As we approach the outer edge, it doesn't look like a spiral at all, just faint glimmers of dust and scattered fragments. But the closer we come, the more we begin to feel the curve. The entire region gently pulls us into its rhythm. We are entering a place where multiple generations of stars have each added their own story to the shape. A kind of cosmic tapestry woven from quiet farewells. Some spirals are tight and fine, made by fast-burning stars whose lives ended quickly. Others are broad and slow, unspooling over millennia. The gathering spiral captures them all, winding their remnants into one immense shared embrace. Inside, everything begins to move together, not fast, never fast, but in harmonious arcs that curve beneath and above us. Like the graceful sweep of a vast invisible hand, our ship rides a path that was once formed by a dying red giant, then crossed centuries later by the breath of a cooling supernova, and again by the dust from a broken binary system. Each spiral layer carries a different temperature, different color, different rhythm. Some still glimmer faintly with stored radiation, casting soft light in deep purples and bronze. Others are nearly black, felt more than seen, cold streams of iron and carbon swirling silently through the haze. We pass through one such layer now, a gentle current of nickel-rich dust that flows like fog through the spiral's lower arc. It parts around our ship without sound, forming slow ripples that echo outward, fading within seconds into the greater spiral. It feels like drifting through the quiet folds of time. These remnants are old, perhaps older than our home star. They carry no urgency, no memory of heat or fire. Only the subtle signature of presence. We don't disturb them. We simply move through, observing how the spiral holds everything, no matter how faint or forgotten, within its patient arms. Deeper within, the spiral's structure becomes more visible. It is not flat, but layered, like a nautilus shell unfolding in 3 dimensions. Within each arc are new textures, gas trails lit by ancient collisions, crystallized dust fields, and curving bands of molecular clouds, waiting for a gravity strong enough to shape them into something new. The air around us glows in places, not brightly, but just enough to remind us. This spiral is not a graveyard, it is a library, a gathering of everything the stars left behind. Not chaos, but slow, deliberate harmony. We come upon what appears to be a quiet nexus, a central point where multiple arcs cross, their paths braided together like slow rivers meeting in a still lake. The particles here are finer, dust-like, forming a halo around an old neutron star. It no longer emits jets or flare. It spins very slowly, barely perceptible but steady. We align the ship's sensors to it, and a low hum resonates in the cabin, its rotational signature, reduced to sound. It is the voice of a star that once danced with immense power, now settled into the gentle role of guardian. At the heart of this spiral of many, we float near it, listening, watching how the surrounding dust responds, slow whirlpools of gas, spiral arcs expanding outward like echo. We linger here for a while, just drifting. The spiral continues to turn, as it always has. There is no rush, no shift in pace. These arcs could turn for another billion years before they unravel. And yet, even within such enormous time, there is warmth, a kind of companionship among the remnants. The stars whose paths now cross here never knew each other, never existed at the same time, but in their endings they formed something shared, something vast and beautiful and unspoken. This is what the spiral teaches us, that all things, no matter how scattered, find a place to belong. And so, once again, we let the ship drift outward, coasting along one of the spiral's outer arms, watching the way it curves into the dark. Behind us, the gathering spiral continues to turn, quiet as ever. Ahead, faint colors shimmer, a nebula's edge, maybe, or something stranger. But as always, we are in no hurry. The path winds on, and we follow, gentle and unshaken, deeper into the endless hush of the star. As we leave the gathering spiral behind, the stars begin to spread out once more. Space opens into long, quiet stretches. There's little to see at first. No glowing gas, no burning suns, no debris fields drifting in silence. Just a darkness so complete, it feels like a pause in the cosmos. But it's not emptiness, it's anticipation. The ship begins to detect it before we do. An oscillation, faint, rhythmic, far too low to hear, but measurable in the gentle sway of particles around the hull. A vibration moving not through air or matter, but through the fabric of space itself. We've found what the deep space wayfarers call the harmonic spiral, a structure so subtle it can only be heard, not seen. Unlike the grand spirals of gas and dust we've traversed, this spiral exists almost entirely in wave. It was born long ago from the collapse of a magnetar, a neutron star, whose powerful magnetic fields stretched and twisted the matter around it into long, unseen arcs. But when the magnetar went quiet, those arcs didn't fade. They lingered in the form of gravitational and electromagnetic ripples, coiled in a slowly spiraling pattern that drifts through space like a frozen symphony. To navigate it, we must switch our systems to resonance mode. Lights dim, thrusters shift to ion drive, soft, slow, nearly silent. And through the hull of the ship, we begin to feel the spiral, not as motion, but as tone. It starts low, a long, slow frequency like the sound of wind beneath mountains. It pulses through the floor, through the seat beneath you, through your ribs, a lullaby without melody, but with rhythm. We follow that rhythm, not on a visual map, but through harmonic alignment, drifting along the invisible curves of wavefronts stretched over light years. Outside, the stars warp slightly, bent by the gravitational memory left by the magnetars. The ship hums in sympathy, resonating with the structure. Slowly, the tone rises, not in volume, but in complexity. Higher frequencies begin to join, whispers of chime-like oscillations, gentle pulses in harmonic interval. We are hearing the ghost of a dying star, not through sound, but through vibration. Within the spiral, the structure becomes more layered. The waves intersect and overlap, creating soft interference patterns. We pass through one, and the ship shivers gently, like a harp string touched by a breeze. Lights flicker, not in alarm, but in rhythm. The harmonic spiral is not dangerous. It simply is a lingering pattern in the quiet. Scientists once theorized these waveforms might influence matter subtly, guiding dust, shaping the alignment of magnetic particles, perhaps even nudging the formation of future stars in slow, imperceptible arcs. But none of that concerns us now. We are not here to study. We are here to listen, and so we do. For a long time, we float within the spiral, letting its tones fill the silence. There's no melody to follow, only the ebb and swell of vibration. But if you close your eyes, you might begin to feel a pattern, a deep spiraling song without a beginning or end. It surrounds us like fog, passes through us like light. You may feel a memory stir of distant voices, or of the ocean at night, or of your own breath in the quiet hours before sleep. The harmonic spiral doesn't speak in language. It speaks in calm, in presence, in echo. At the center, there is no object to find. No star, no core, no light, only convergence, where every vibration overlaps, where every frequency aligns. And the result is silence so complete, it sings. We do not approach it direct. We simply drift near, close enough to feel the full stillness of its heart. It is not a silence of emptiness, but of fullness. A silence where everything has been said. A final chord that lasts forever. When we are ready, we turn again, our ship's systems gently shifting us back into visual space. The tones fade behind us, one by one, until only the deepest hum remains. And then that too is gone. Ahead, new stars blink into view, distant points of fire and possibility. The harmonic spiral recedes behind us, like the memory of a song you never quite knew, but always recognized. We carry the rhythm with us now, in our breath, in our stillness, in the long arcs of motion that continue ever forward. Another spiral awaits. As we sail beyond the last harmonic tremors, the ship enters a region of space that seems to hold its breath. No pulsing stars, no dust clouds, no waveforms, just vast, silent dark. But in this stillness, something begins to change. Slowly, gently, we notice the stars ahead growing brighter. Not because they're burning hotter, but because we are entering a region rich with reflected light. This is what's known as the echo bloom, a vast spiral formed not of matter nor of radiation, but of light returning after a journey through time and space. Photons scattered long ago by the fading layers of dying stars have curved through gravitational fields, bounced off frozen dust and wandered the dark until they gathered here, faint, delayed, and drifting. These spirals are made of memory. From a distance, the echo bloom is nearly invisible. It doesn't radiate like a nebula or gleam like starlight. It flickers, dim, silken arcs of reflected light, winding across thousands of kilometers, each one a strand of color that doesn't belong to the space it now floats in. We pass into the outer ring and are immediately immersed in a light show that feels impossible. Colors that don't exist in the visible spectrum, translated by the ship's visual filters into pale lavender, sea glass green, copper gold, and deep midnight blue. These are the shadows of light curled back toward us after centuries of travel. And though each photon is faint, together they weave an atmosphere of soft radiance, as if the whole region were lit by a dream remembered just before waking. Our vessel glides through the arcs with almost no resistance. The light here is too fine, too distant from its origin to warm or push. It simply surrounds us. Outside, the spirals turn. Not quickly, but with more motion than any we've seen in hours. The curvature of gravity and dust has shaped them into swirls of light like petals suspended in space. Some fade and disappear before our eyes. Others slowly emerge from nothing as stray beams finally arrive. The ship's sensors begin to track the source of the reflections, mapping out their ancient origin points. Supernovae that flashed centuries ago, planetary nebula long dissolved, red giants now gone silent. Every spiral in the echo bloom carries the memory of light that once bathed a solar system in warmth. It is not the original fire, but it is the echo of that fire, returned in kindness. We pass beneath a high arc of amber and violet light, and as we do, the inside of the ship takes on its hue. It feels like sailing through the stained glass wings of some impossibly large and gentle creature. The reflections don't just color space, they reshape it, bending in and around the hull in soft, swirling halo. Instruments begin to detect resonance patterns again. Not harmonic tones this time, but ambient electromagnetic whispers, as if the light carries with it the voices of the stars it once touched. We don't translate them. There's no. What matters is the feeling, a calm, blooming sense of return. The stars are not here, but their presence is. And then deeper in, we come to a region where the spirals converge into a central bloom, a layered, circular formation like a rose made of light. It turns slowly, almost imperceptibly, casting soft waves of color across the surrounding field. At its heart is nothing. No core, no collapsed star, no remnant. Only the emptiness where those stars once were. And yet it is the most radiant part of the spiral. The convergence of all the echoes, the final reflection of light that was once scattered outward, now curved gently back toward its origin. The ship pauses. We drift there, suspended at the edge of this spiral flower, watching its petals fade and return, like the tide of a sea that flows in every direction at once. Here time becomes fluid. We watch the petals turn and cannot tell how long we've been here. Minutes, hours. The colors shift slowly across the hull, bathing the interior in gentle cycles of warmth and shadow. Nothing asks for movement. There is no sense of destination, only this, the breath of light, spiraling inward, then back out again. The soft bloom of memory returning home. Eventually, when we feel the spiral has finished its silent lullaby, we begin to move again. We pass through the last outer arcs where the reflections are thin and pale, barely whispers now. Behind us, the bloom fades into the background dark, glowing with a peace that needs no explanation. Ahead, a new region calls softly, not with light, not with sound, but with a kind of stillness, shaped like a cradle. Perhaps the next spiral is one of beginnings, or perhaps it's where even echoes sleep. But for now, we sail on, quiet, glowing, hell. There are regions in the galaxy that barely seem to exist. They show up on no maps, emit no radiation, and offer no gravity strong enough to pull. They are passed by silently, often unnoticed, even by those who drift the stars with patience. But sometimes, if you listen closely, not with your ears but with your breath, you'll find one. A still place, a hollow in the dark. That is where we're going now. Our ship has left the soft shimmer of the echo bloom behind, and ahead lies a spiral so faint, so slow, that only the oldest of probes ever recorded its presence. It does not glow, it does not hum, it waits. As we approach, the sensors pick up something strange. No motion, not just very little, but nearly none. The dust, gas, and debris that form this spiral appear suspended, caught in curves that do not turn. There is no wind, no charge, no flux, and yet the spiral shape is perfect. So perfect it could not be natural, unless formed over millions of years in conditions so calm they bordered on absolute stillness. Some believe the still spiral formed in a pocket of space, cooled by cosmic expansion. where entropy did not destroy motion, but slowed it into a sculpture of time. The result is what lies before us now. A three-dimensional spiral, formed from particles so fine and spaced so evenly that they haven't collided in eons. They are not frozen, just resting, perhaps forever. We pass into the outer layer and everything changes. Even our own motion begins to feel like too much. The engines reduce thrust automatically. The ship glides, almost ashamed of breaking the hush. Outside, particles drift like dust motes in a sealed room, spiraling around an unseen point, not in haste, but in serenity. They are lit only by distant starlight, which reflects softly off their tiny surfaces, like light through fogged glass. There is no temperature here, no color, no movement except what was given long ago. The spiral curves gently inward, folding like the edges of a soft shell. We follow, not because we must, but because it would feel wrong to do anything else. And here, inside this shell of stillness, we find something not made of matter, but of space itself. Calm. A calm so deep it presses against your thoughts, inviting them to stop spinning, to settle, to breathe. Inside the still spiral, it becomes difficult to remember what came before. All previous spirals, those made of light and wave and dust, feel distant, as if they happened in another lifetime. In this spiral, time slows so much that even your breath feels longer. The seconds between heartbeats stretch. The silence becomes textured, layered with quiet, that somehow holds you like a blanket wrapped around the cosmos. The ship does not rock. The light does not shift. We have entered a perfect pause. At the center we find no star, not even a remnant, only a soft gradient of gravity, pulling gently from a region where perhaps long ago a star once formed and faded. Its death left no light, only the memory of motion, slowed into this spiral cradle. Some say black dwarfs eventually disappear, not explode, not collapse, but dissolve into non-interaction. If such a thing happens, this may be what's left behind, a gravity shell, a soft curve in space-time, where matter still drifts. Even though the light is gone, we stay here for a long time, held. Nothing compels us to leave. There is no sound, no urgency, no change, but it is not boredom. It is peace of the deepest kind. You could fall asleep here for 100 years and still wake up to the same gentle stillness, the same suspended dance of dust, the same hum of non-motion. And maybe that's what the still spiral is meant for. Not endings, not beginning, but rest. The kind of rest the universe itself must sometimes take. Eventually, our ship stirs gently, as if sensing that we are ready. The engines whisper back to life, just barely. We begin to ease away from the center, following a path outward along the curve. The particles remain undisturbed, still in their sacred hush. As we exit the spiral's outer veil, we look back, not at a shape, for there is none to see with the eye, but at the idea of a place where even time itself slowed down, just to breathe. Ahead, faint colors stir again, a region of gentle collisions perhaps. A spiral built not of silence, but of renewal. But we do not think of that yet. For now we carry the hush of the still spiral with us, not as memory, but as presence. The quiet doesn't fade. It travels with us, curling inside our chest like a second heart. It begins as a whisper on the edge of shadow. We are gliding outward from the hushed embrace of the still spiral. Our vessel quiet, our thoughts slower than ever. The afterglow of stillness lingers in the air, as if silence itself has left a fine dust on our skin. The stars ahead are barely visible, dimmed by the sheer gentleness of this region. Yet something begins to shift, softly, like the hush before dawn. A return of motion, a flicker of tone. The ship's sensors pick it up before our eyes do. Small pulses of radiation, faint arcs of light, and the barest suggestion of shape unfolding within the void. This is not a supernova remnant, nor the strong magnetic wave of a neutron star. What we are approaching is far subtler, less an event, more a reawakening. It is called the spiral of returning light, not because light bursts from it, but because here in the dark, the long journeys of photons finally begin to bend homeward. After drifting for centuries, cast off by dying stars and scattered nebulae, these threads of light, faint, slow, exhausted, have gathered again, caught gently in gravitational eddies, drawn back not to a source, but to a shared center of rest. As we draw nearer, it begins to appear, a delicate helix of motion, formed not of particles or plasma, but of returning glimmers. Each spiral arc is a collection of slow light, reflections, and remnants from long-dead stars. They do not move quickly. They drift like lanterns caught in a tide, bending into spiral curves that wrap softly around an invisible point. We enter the outer edge slowly, allowing the ship to match the rhythm of the field. The light here isn't bright. It doesn't illuminate so much as faint hues: rose, pale gold, faded blue, intermingle like watercolor brushed through air. There is no single star at the center of this spiral. No flame, no core. What anchors it is motion itself, the gathered inertia of every glimmer returning. It is as if the light, long thought gone, found its way home, not to the stars that birthed it, but to one another. Their curves intersect and pull into a wide, slow spiral that spans hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Some of these glimmers are only the barest photons, others are curved fragments of wave portions of flare, refracted emissions from old nebulae, and the delicate radiation echo of cooling stars. They move with grace, obeying paths laid out by nothing more than gravity and patience. Our ship glides through this spiral like a gondola, floating across a lake of stars. The internal lights dim to near nothing, letting the slow drift of colors outside bathe the cabin in shifting tone. It's not a bright display, no explosions, no sharp lines, but a living aurora that glows in time with the silence. Every now and then, a photon hits the viewing window just right, and glimmers as if trying to remind us, I've been traveling for a long, long time. You begin to feel that time too, not as something heavy, but as something vast and tender. These lights are not signals, they are not trying to speak. They are arrivals. Their journey is over. Within the spiral's second curve, we begin to notice another layer. Fine trails of magnetic dust coiling gently along with the light. They aren't the origin of the spiral, but they are caught in its flow. The effect is mesmerizing. Each trail shimmers faintly, stirred by passing radiation, like pollen on the surface of a breeze. As we pass through one, it scatters softly, revealing behind it a thin veil of light, too fine to see until disturbed. These dust clouds are old, likely ejected from stars during their final expansions and long since cooled, and now they too have come to rest in the embrace of this spiral. Time inside the spiral of returning light becomes fluid. There is no sense of beginning or end. It is not a spiral that tightens toward a center, nor one that flings outward. It simply turns, a slow fold of space and motion, where everything is moving without going anywhere. It feels familiar, even if we've never seen it before, like the moment you return to a place you don't remember, and something in your chest loosens, as if you've been here before, in a dream, or in the silence between thoughts. It is not a place of endings. It is a place of coming back. At the spiral's inner curve, we find a small structure, an ancient probe, perhaps a remnant from a mission launched long before our time. Its hull is coated in fine crystalline frost, and its energy signature is nearly gone, but it rests there peacefully, as though it too has followed the light home. The ship slows as we pass, and for a moment, we observe it in silence. No inscription remains, no beacon calls, just an object, once full of purpose, now held gently in a spiral of light that has no need for direction. We do not disturb it. We pass on, beyond the central arcs, The spiral loosens into wider turns. The glimmers of light grow sparser, more diffuse. The returning photons thin into long, graceful trails. Some fade entirely as we watch, winking out as their energy is finally absorbed by the surrounding dust. Others shimmer briefly, then vanish beyond the ship's visual range, perhaps starting a new spiral elsewhere. Even light doesn't last forever, but here it ends with grace, with rest. The spiral does not fight entropy. It folds into it like a lullaby woven into silence. And still we drift, carried not by force, but by the inertia of the spiral itself. We pass through the final arc, where the last returning glimmers stretch thin. And then we are through. Behind us, the spiral of returning light continues to turn, barely visible now. Just a faint, slow lace of color, unraveling into the black. Ahead, stars once again begin to appear in sharper contrast. The sensors pick up distant points of motion, denser gas fields, curved trajectories, and the thermal signature of another structure. Perhaps a spiral born of pressure rather than memory. Perhaps one still become. But for now we remain silent. The return has happened. The light has come home, and we carry that stillness with us. The transition happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. One moment we are coasting through the outer wisps of the spiral of returning light. In the next, the background stars begin to shimmer differently, not in brightness, but in density. A subtle clustering, a shift in rhythm. The onboard systems sense a field ahead. A broad, gently rotating spiral formation, made not of gas or light, or radiation, but of something heavier, more solid. This spiral doesn't drift. It gathers. This is the spiral of ash and seed, a region where dying stars, instead of scattering, have collapsed into a spiral of quiet construction. It is not a place of glowing halos or bright trails. It is dark, deeply so. The kind of dark that feels less like absence and more like soil, rich, deep, full of potential. This spiral is made of mineralized stardust, iron fragments, carbon chunks, crystal shards, the cooled remains of ancient cores and planetary bones. And yet within this darkness, something astonishing is happening. It is not dispersal. It is collection. Gravitational lines, gently coiling around a central zone of stability, have begun to draw matter inward, slowly, patiently. This is not a spiral of death. It is a nursery, the silent, beginning hum of stars to come. As we glide toward the spiral's outer arcs, we reduce thrust to a whisper. The ship shifts into passive drift mode, allowing the quiet gravity of the spiral to do the guiding. Outside the viewing panels, the dark is broken by small glints, metallic reflections, crystal flashes. Nothing consistent, nothing fast. These fragments do not rush toward a center. They meander, they drift, caught in soft currents that have been turning for millennia. Each fragment, some the size of pebbles, others entire moonlets, is a piece of something that once burned hot. A sun's heart, a planet's crust, now cooled, now still. Yet here, waiting, we pass through the first curve. It feels like entering the slow, circling breath of a forest after rain. Everything is hushed, but full. The gravitational arcs guide us gently into deeper layers. Unlike gaseous spirals, this one hums with. We feel it in the soft pull on the ship's hull, in the slight shift of pressure in the cabin. There is weight here, but not oppressive. It is grounding, comforting. A return to foundation. Sensors display the spread, layers of iron-rich silicate, graphite-like flakes, and traces of crystalline formations, once born in supernova shockwaves. And somewhere ahead, near the spiral's cradle point, denser knots are forming. We steer toward one such knot, slowly, reverently. It's not much to look at. A clump of mineralized dust, roughly spherical, barely 70 kilometers across. But inside it, there is motion, not fast, not visible to the eye, but measurable. Gravity is knitting it together, grain by grain. We circle the mass in silence, watching it turn ever so faintly, its outer dust curling inward, like the edge of a sleeping eye. A proto-world, forming not in violence, but in hush. It is not yet warm, not yet active, but it holds the promise of structure, of shape. It is a seed, cradled in ash. All around us, other such seeds drift in orbit, some larger, some still loose. The spiral is wide, layered with coalescing pockets. In a few 100 million years, this region might bloom with stars once more, but for now it rests in gestation. This is the cycle, and it continues not with fanfare, but with stillness. Here among these fragments, you feel the deepest truth of the universe, that even the end of something immense and burning can become the beginning of something slow and sacred. Every rock drifting past us was once part of a living star system, fused in fire, scattered in time, now becoming again. We float deeper into the spiral's inner arcs. The density increases, but the silence remains. The stars beyond are dimmed now, their light absorbed by the thickening dust. Outside, only soft gleams reflect off the ship's surface, subtle outlines of future forms. We pass a wide plain of fragmented debris. It stretches for hundreds of kilometers, a slow swirl of carbon-rich remnants. Somewhere in the center of it all, tiny grains of metal begin to cling together. We watch as, across weeks or years of slow time, gravity will shape them into a core. It is like watching the birth of a breath. The ship pauses here, hovering within the dust plain. Instruments deactivate, lights dim. There is no need to rush. This spiral is not meant for passing through. It is meant for being within, for understanding that some parts of the universe create not through action, but through allowance, by giving space, by turning gently, by folding the past into a cradle for the future. As we rest, a gentle vibration runs through the hull, not from impact, not from pressure, but from resonance. The mineral field around us hums with an ambient frequency so low it can only be felt, a deep tectonic note, like the pulse of something beginning to wake. Not loudly, not all at once, but steadily. The ash is becoming soil, the dust is becoming seed, and the spiral turns on. Hours may pass here, or perhaps only minutes. It's impossible to tell. Time is not marked in ticks or measurements. It is felt through curve, through mass, through the slow tightening of shape. You may feel as you watch the dust drift and settle, something inside you doing the same. A gathering, a quietness within your chest, the sense of being small but not insignificant, a part of the slow, patient turning of things. Eventually, when the spiral begins to thin again, when the fields become sparser, the particles more scattered, we drift once more into motion. We leave the innermost knots behind, watching as the potential for stars fades behind us, like the whisper of a lullaby, not yet sung, but the promise remains, and we carry it forward. Ahead lies something new, a region of strange color, where matter seems to bend the light around it in ways that are neither violent nor familiar. Perhaps a spiral caught in the act of changing its shape, a spiral between form. But for now, we move slowly, steadily, with the calm of ash and seed in our breath. The darkness ahead is different, not deeper, but less fixed. The stars shimmer here in strange ways, bending slightly, as if seen through water. Even the space between stars feels uncertain, their distances fluctuating as if the geometry of the void itself is slowly exhaling. Our vessel drifts onward, and as we leave behind the mineral-rich stillness of the spiral of ash and seed, the ship's systems begin adjusting. It's not just motion we must account for now, it's flux. The laws here still hold, but they bend gracefully like reeds in a slow wind. We are entering the spiral that shifts. This spiral isn't easily seen, even up close. It does not reveal itself in glowing arms or arcs of debris. It manifests in the way the light curves, the way time hesitates, the way gravity pulls just slightly off-center. The spiral is a field of transformation, a region sculpted by the final acts of a quasar that once fed greedily on the heart of a galaxy. The quasar is long gone, its fire but the waves it left behind still echo through the fabric of space, warping not violently, but gently enough to form a slow, spiraling ripple through time itself. We enter through one of these ripples now. It feels like passing through a veil of air. The ship's hull vibrates softly, and then stillness. followed by a sensation of unmooring. Time around us slows, not drastically, but noticeably. Clocks on the console tick more slowly than the rhythm of your heartbeat. Outside the ship, the stars ahead stretch ever so slightly, their light elongated into faint arcs. The ship adjusts course gently, following the slow gravitational bends. We are inside a time drift spiral, its turns not of matter but of moment. Within this spiral, each arc holds a slightly different phase of reality. The outer layers drift a fraction of a second behind the inner ones. The result is a slow, elegant layering of time, like pages in a book turning in the wind. Our passage through these layers is smooth but surreal. The light outside the windows pulses in odd rhythms, not flashing, but shifting subtly between tones. A blue star in the distance might appear to sway, then sharpen, then fade, its photons delayed by the bends in space-time. It's not illusion, it's not malfunction. It is the spiral turning not just in space, but through the soft spiral of now. We follow one of its arcs, a gentle curve that leads us through a corridor of soft distortions. Here, a cloud of gas appears ahead, only to dissolve into ripples of heat before we reach it. There, a cluster of dark matter briefly becomes visible as light refracts perfectly through the local curve. These moments don't repeat, they happen once and then shift, folding back into the fabric. We are not merely observing a spiral. We are passing through a choreography of cosmic change, each moment a variation of the last. Deep within, we find a region where the bends are stronger. The light slows further. Sound inside the ship seems to stretch. Even your breath feels longer. We drift close to what appears to be a central convergence point, though it's not a physical body. It's a node, a gravitational focus where multiple spirals intersect. Our systems register echoes of stellar mass that should no longer be here. Signals flicker in and out, the heat signature of a white dwarf, the magnetic pulse of a neutron star, the faint X-ray traces of a black hole's corona. But none of them hold. They emerge, fade, return altered. We do not move closer. Instead, we let the spiral move around us. The ship floats in place as the spiral's rhythm passes by, like standing still in a tide pool, while waves flow past. Through the windows, stars blur, stretch, resolve again. A red dwarf appears 3 times, each instance slightly shifted. The same star, viewed across different slices of time. It's not duplication, it's perspective, each arc of the spiral showing a slightly different reality. And as we float, something else happens. The ship's internal instruments begin to fluctuate. Our chronometers register time passing at different rates between sections of the ship. A light blinks twice in the forward cabin, once in the rear. Voices recorded in one moment play back a few seconds later, with a slight tonal difference. The spiral is not breaking time. It is showing us that time is not a constant line. It is a spiral itself, a soft folding shape, a pattern of rhythms and pauses. And here among these curves, it becomes visible. You may feel it too, an awareness that you are in many moments at once. The version of you just entering the spiral. The version of you still thinking of the ashes behind. The version of you already resting in spirals, still to come. Here they converge, not sharply, not with confusion, but like soft harmonies blending across space. Further inward, we pass an object, a relic caught in the spiral's center. Not a star, not a world, something artificial, a satellite, a listening station. It's unclear. The structure is cylindrical, aged, and glows faintly with stored energy. But even it shifts. At times it appears whole, then cracked, then missing panels, then whole again. We glimpse it across its own lifetime, moment by moment. It has been here a long time, waiting, watching, perhaps caught, perhaps placed. We leave it behind without touching it. Not everything inside this spiral is meant to be held. Some things are meant only to be witnessed. As we arc outward, the spiral loosens. Time grows steadier. Stars begin to hold their shape. The distortions fade. We look back, and the spiral that shifts appears not as a spiral at all, but as a shimmer in the air, a ripple, a suggestion. Only from inside does its form become clear. and only from stillness does its meaning become felt. And now, ahead, a slow green glow begins to rise across the dark. A fan of color like sea glass, caught in moonlight, it stretches upward in long, curving arms, not the tail of a comet, not a supernova, something quieter, something growing, perhaps the first breath of a spiral made not from death or light, or time, but from memory becoming matter. But we will not name it yet, not now, for now we drift forward, slow as breath, carrying the layered time of the shifting spiral with us. We do not speak, the ship does not hum, the stars, ever patient, make room for us once again. That shifts, and the universe takes a breath. The stars, once flickering with layered echoes, now settle into clarity. Ahead, space holds a still, low radiance, visible even from a distance. Not light from stars or reflections from gas, but the glow of dust, cosmic dust, suspended across a spiral so wide, its edges dissolve into the dark. And this dust, it remembers. It is called the spiral of remembering dust, not by science, but by the wanderers who've passed through and felt its presence. Here, the remains of ancient stars, long since turned to ash and atom, gather into soft arcs of motion. But the dust doesn't just spiral, it shimmers in a pattern. When seen from afar, it pulses gently, as if breathing. And within that pulse, something extraordinary happens. The magnetic alignments of the dust reflect and refract faint traces of the environments they once knew. Each particle, microscopic and alone, still carries within it a memory of where it came from. A field of gravity, a moment of heat, the final vibrations of a dying sun. As we approach the outermost curve, the ship begins to pick up minute electromagnetic pulses, rhythms, as subtle as heartbeat flutters. Not sound, not energy that pushes or pulls, just faint impressions, dancing across our instruments, like soft static woven into harmony. It's as though the dust is singing, not in voice, but in presence, and we listen. We drift into the outer arm, where the density of dust is low, and each particle floats widely spaced, free, slow, turning in curves that echo the motion of once living systems. The dust here is primarily carbon and silicate, dark and cool, shaped into long arcs by the weak gravity of a memory long faded. Our ship disturbs almost nothing. We coast through, each mote slipping past us like starlight caught in cobweb. But as we pass, we begin to see them glow, not bright, but steady. Each speck reflects the surrounding faint light in a frequency matched not to our eyes, but to memory itself. The result is an aurora of recollection. The stars do not speak, but the dust does. The inner arms grow denser. Dust curls into veils, almost like ancient ink swirling in water. Within these swirls, we begin to see patterns, whorls shaped by long-lost stellar winds, echoes of a red giant's breath now held in frozen form. It's not chaos, it's choreography. Every fragment remembers where it once moved, and continues that arc however faint. Even now, the spiral is not maintained by gravity alone. It is maintained by habit, by the rhythm left behind when energy fades, but motion remembers. The ship adjusts, tilting gently to follow a particularly dense spiral strand. The light here dims. Outside, the color shifts to bronze and umber, the hues of cooling flame and fading warmth. The dust begins to reflect faint star maps, light warped through magnetic memory. We see the constellations of other systems painted faintly on the surfaces of passing particles. 1,000 sky maps, each one from a different perspective, held inside grains no larger than a breath. These maps aren't readable by machine, but when viewed, when felt, they suggest something deeper. Presence, once known, now drifting. And then, a shift. We pass into the heart of the spiral, not a center, not a core, but a density of alignment. Here, the dust folds inward, not tightly, but deliberately. It's as if the spiral knows its own shape. Within this hollow swirl, we find a phenomenon known only in myth, a dust echo, a pulse of reflected light from a supernova that occurred hundreds of thousands of years ago. captured and re-radiated by the surrounding dust like ripples in still water. And we see it, not directly, but as a slow wave of golden warmth drifting across the spiral, bathing the dust in remembrance. It lasts for minutes, maybe longer, a quiet wave of light that reminds the dust and us of what once was, not the explosion, but not the fire, but the freedom of energy let go. As it passes over our ship, the instruments flare briefly with gentle color. Outside, the hull shimmers as if wrapped in amber. Inside, the air feels thick with reverence. We pause, not to analyze, not to record, but simply to witness. Within the silence that follows, the spiral shifts again. The dust begins to thin, still coiled, still turning, but more spread out, as if having completed a gesture. The memory does not fade, it simply loosens, allowing what remains to continue forward. We follow. Along the final arc, we begin to see something rare. Clumps of dust beginning to coalesce, not into planets, not yet, but into filaments, thick enough to become future stars' seedbeds. These are cradles, regions where remembering becomes creating. The dust is not just holding memory, it is reshaping it. What once came from endings now turns toward becoming. Our path takes us through one such cradle. The ship drifts silently between long strands of carbon chains, slowly winding themselves into denser formations. Our sensors confirm it. This will be a star, someday, not soon, not in our time, but its shape has begun. A spiral born from dust, born from memory, born from the dying breath of something long, long past. We drift outward now, passing through the final strands of remembering dust. The light behind us dims into soft orange and silver echoes. The silence grows again, not empty, but full, the kind of silence that follows understanding. The ship's trajectory stabilizes. Ahead, the stars begin to shift once more. Brighter now, the glow of heat and collision stirs on the horizon. Perhaps the next spiral will be warmer, more alive with motion, a spiral caught in the tension of becoming. But this one, the spiral of remembering dust, it stays with us, not in sound or sight, but in how gently the universe can hold its stories. It does not cry them out, it does not clutch them close, it lets them drift, softly, into shape. And we, silent as the dust, continue on. There is a kind of silence that follows creation, when it pauses, not because it failed, but because it simply changed its mind. We move now into that quiet. Ahead lies a spiral with no origin flare, no dying core, no shell of gas cast off in brilliance. Instead, it was formed by objects that never fully became stars. The drifters, the warm but dim, the nearly there. This is the spiral of almost stars, a wide and gentle curve of brown dwarfs and failed suns curled together in a soft orbit of might-have-beens. The ship glides into the region slowly. At first, there seems to be little here. No light glinting off metallic dust, no echoing pulses from stellar remnants. But soon we begin to see them, faint, cool glows against the black spherical shapes, scattered across a spiral pattern so subtle it only becomes visible once you're within it. They do not shine. They do not flicker. They glow, like embers half buried beneath ash, retaining just enough warmth to remind the universe, I existed. Brown dwarfs are not truly stars. Not quite. They are too small to sustain hydrogen fusion, too large to be planets, somewhere in between, suspended in the stillness of unfinished transformation. Yet each one carries the mass, the gravity, and the motion of purpose. And when they gather, as they have here, drawn into slow orbital dance by their mutual weight, they form a spiral of gentle gravities, a place where possibility coiled itself into a new kind of shape. We follow the outermost path, coasting near one such object. It is large, perhaps 15 times the mass of Jupiter, and deep violet in hue. Its atmosphere radiates a soft warmth, laced with methane clouds and high-altitude storms that shift so slowly, they resemble shadows more than weather. We pass close enough to feel the edge of its pull, and for a moment we drift alongside it, Our ship and this almost star moving together in shared silence. No flares greet us, no bursts of energy, just presence, a spherical hush, slowly turning. As we journey deeper into the spiral, the number of brown dwarfs increases. Some move in pairs, bound by gravity in slow mutual orbits. Others drift alone, their motion shaped by the invisible web of the spiral's overall pull. Between them stretches emptiness, not barren but carefully spaced, like the pauses between notes in a song too slow to play aloud. These pauses are the spiral itself, curves not drawn by light, but by inertia, by mass, by the patient hand of time, folding would-be stars into a structure all their own. Our path curves inward now, into the heart of the spiral. The darkness grows thicker, not with absence but with density. The space between objects here is filled with hydrogen and helium, the leftover gas from star formation that never took hold. It's thin, cold, drifting like silk. Our ship passes through it easily, but we begin to feel a subtle drag, not mechanical, but emotion, as if space itself were asking us to slow down, to listen. And so we do. We drift, unpowered, letting the spiral's gravity lead us. It is here, within the spiral's deeper arcs, that something remarkable becomes visible. Ahead, an entire cluster of brown dwarfs has coalesced into a kind of shared motion, not chaotic but harmonic. A collective spiral within the spiral, their orbits shaped not just by mass but by resonance. Each almost star tugs gently on the next, like dancers moving in sequence. Their paths form ripples in the thin gas around them, and those ripples shine faintly, ionized by slow gravitational compression. The result is a structure that pulses with warmth, like the glow of coals breathing in the dark. Inside the ship, the lights dim further. The control panels switch to resonance mode, allowing us to feel the pull of the spiral's core rather than read it in data. Our bodies sway slightly, not from force, but from rhythm. This is not the harsh orbit of massive stars, nor the cold stillness of dust. This is something gentler. Each brown dwarf hums in its own low tone, electromagnetic pulses so slow and deep, they can be translated into sound only by expanding time itself. We let those tones wash over us, a sound not of music, but of might-have-beens, of stars that never burned but never stopped moving. In this spiral, we do not mourn what wasn't, we honor what almost was. The deeper we move into the core, the warmer the gas becomes. Not hot, but just above the cold of space. It is a warmth that suggests motion, potential. We pass a particularly dense region where several brown dwarfs have begun to gather gas, not quickly, not greedily, but in soft accumulation. This is not the violent birth of a sun, it is a long, patient inhalation. If conditions remain undisturbed, this knot of mass may one day ignite, perhaps not in 1,000,000 years, but in 1,000,000,000, and if it doesn't, it will remain here, part of the spiral's lullaby. There is no hurry. We linger in the spiral's innermost arm, watching the slow turn of almost stars beneath us. In this place, creation is a question, not a command. Each object might have become a star, might still, but if not, their paths remain, coiling, harmonizing, and it is beautiful. Eventually, we begin to drift outward once more. The spiral's motion assists us, nudging our ship along the curve. Behind us, the cluster fades into shadow, its glows dimming into the background, like the memory of a song you can no longer hear, but still remember how it felt. Ahead, we detect a new structure, something more radiant, a spiral with edges that sparkle, possibly charged, possibly volatile, a place where particles meet and crackle, a spiral of change, of collision, but we are not there yet. For now, we carry the memory of the almost stars with us, not bright, not loud, but steady, and turning, always turning. We emerge from the hush of the spiral of almost stars with the deep violet glow of cooled hydrogen still fading behind us. Ahead, the darkness is clearer, more open, and yet something tingles faintly on the hull like static brushing against the skin of space. It's not wind, not temperature, it's charge. The sensors confirm it. A subtle increase in free electrons, low-energy plasma fields, and magnetic wavelets weaving together into patterns. We're entering what explorers have gently named the spiral of soft collisions, a region where star remnants, slow-drifting ion clouds, and charged particles meet. Not in violence, but in shimmering release. This is not a place of explosions. No nova remnants light the way. Instead, it's a field of slow, graceful meetings, clouds brushing one another like the quiet merging of breaths in the dark. The energy released in these interactions is mild, but cumulative. Over centuries, the friction of particle against particle, field upon field, has charged the spiral with a subtle glow. It drapes the region in a quiet light, not unlike bioluminescence, seen from the depths of an ocean. The stars beyond are dimmed by it. Their outlines soften. We are in a place that sparkles gently, like the air after a warm storm. The ship adjusts itself as we glide into the spiral's outer edges. Small magneto guides activate to align with the drifting field line. It feels like sailing through a breeze that responds to your motion. A slow, invisible stream of gently charged wind. We pass a cloud of ionized argon, glowing faintly blue. As we move near it, the ship's sensors pick up brief flickers, intermittent flashes of soft light as electrons recombine with atoms, releasing photons. These aren't flares, they're whispers, flickers of gentle light, as the universe lets go of excess energy in the calmest way it can. Everywhere we look, there are glimmers, not bright, not sharp, but constant. Charged dust trails curving through the spiral, spiraling in patterns barely visible, unless you let your eyes relax. The paths of older star cores, now cooled and drifting, carry tiny magnetic wakes behind them, curling the surrounding particles into soft eddies. These currents don't swirl quickly. They drift like lullabies, slow, repetitive, and soothing. And in the center of these spirals within spirals, we find glints of light, where micro-collisions release a pulse. Some last a second, others stretch on, fading like a breath taken in a dream. We glide further inward. The light becomes more complex here. Not brighter, but layered. The colors begin to shift: faint greens, muted golds, dusky purples. These aren't pigments, they're interactions, tiny shifts in electromagnetic resonance, as atoms collide gently and release just enough energy to change the air around them. We pass through one such band of interaction, and for a brief moment, the hull of the ship glows with ghost light, dust illuminated by the fields we move through. It looks like rain frozen in midair, each droplet a tiny universe flickering with its own story. Our sensors locate an object just ahead, a small compact remnant of a white dwarf, perhaps 10,000 kilometers across. It no longer radiates in any spectrum visible to the eye, but around it a halo of charged particles spins gently, drawn in by the remnant's magnetic field. The result is breathtaking, a quiet storm of light moving in concentric spirals, each layer shining faintly in a different wavelength. We do not disturb it. We drift slowly past, letting the storm wrap around us like a shawl. The light flickers on the walls inside the ship, and for a moment, it feels like we're sailing through the memory of a fire. Here in the spiral of soft collisions, nothing hurries. Even the energy when released takes its time to fade. We witness one cloud pass through another at an oblique angle. Two slow streams of ionized gas meeting and merging over hundreds of kilometers. Where they touch, a band of glowing filaments unfurls like silk, then dissipates, scattering soft light for minutes afterward. It's not an explosion, it's a greeting, the meeting of ancient paths long wandering. We follow a curve of faint starlight deeper into the spiral's heart. Here, the density of interactions increases, not chaotic, but frequent. Charged grains of metallic dust collide and part, leaving behind trails of light. Hydrogen atoms gather and recombine, releasing soft puffs of color. In one region, we see a loop, an arc of electromagnetic charge moving endlessly in a circular path, caught between the residual fields of two long collapsed stellar cores. It flickers rhythmically, like a lighthouse made not from metal, but from static and memory. Inside the ship, the gentle rhythm of these interactions, begins to affect our own breath. We slow, we watch, we listen. The sound of the engines fades into the background, replaced by the subtle thrum of field harmonics vibrating softly through the hull. We are not just passing through this spiral, we are becoming part of its current. We pause at a resting point, an old observation platform. Now it floats gently between two arcs of glowing gas. Its panels are folded, its instruments long silent, but it remains oriented toward the center of the spiral, its position unchanged after decades of drift. We hover beside it for a while, sharing its stillness. The glimmer of nearby dust dances across its surface, and for a moment, it seems almost alive again, watching, recording, remembering. The central spiral begins to thin now. The collisions grow less frequent. The light softens. We pass through the innermost arc, where all is hushed once more. The last glints of interaction shimmer like candlelight in retreat. The spiral fades behind us, its curves invisible now, but felt in the silence it leaves behind. And yet, we carry it. On the hull, dust glows faintly from residual char. Inside, the rhythm of our bodies echoes the soft timing of colliding clouds. In our minds, we feel the shape of a spiral made not from endings or even from becoming, but from meeting, from brushing close, from quiet touch. Ahead, the blackness deepens again, but within it, a shimmer begins. Not bright, not defined, just a possibility. A spiral that pulses with strange regularity. A heartbeat too wide to measure. Perhaps a pulsar field. Perhaps something more ancient and less named. But we do not rush, not now. We let the last sparks fade. We breathe in the soft collision, and we move forward. Always, always forward. Into the quiet spiral of what comes next.
There is a kind of order so perfect, so enduring, that it hums beneath the surface of the universe like a lullaby we almost remember. That is what we now enter, a place where dying stars collapsed into dense remnants, spin in slow synchrony, each one radiating a pulse of electromagnetic rhythm so precise, so soft, it feels like a whisper, strung across the dark. This is the spiral that sings in silence. It first reveals itself not in sight, but in sensation. The ship's sensors grow quiet, then attentive. A pattern emerges, low pulses, steady intervals, intermittent rhythms, dancing just at the edge of perception. We match speed to the spiral's outer edge, and as we do, the sound becomes real, translated into a soft, slow series of tones echoing through the hull. Not loud, not urgent, but undeniable. We are approaching a pulsar field, a region where dozens, perhaps hundreds of neutron stars spin in coordinated arcs. Neutron stars are what remain when massive stars die in supernovae and collapse into spheres barely 20 kilometers wide, yet denser than anything else in the cosmos. Most vanish into quietude, but some keep spinning fast and bright with magnetism, releasing regular beams of energy like cosmic lighthouses. When they align into a spiral like this, drawn together by slow gravitational threading over time, they form something unique, not chaotic, not violent, but harmonious. The pulses are out of sync just enough to create patterns, like stars breathing in polyphony. As we drift inward, the pulses grow more complex. The outer pulsars spin slowly, their beams sweeping space like gliding clock hands. One rotates every few seconds, another every few milliseconds. Together, their radiation curves overlap and unfold in spiraling paths of rhythm. The result is not a light show, but a song, a music made of timing, of precision, of deeply controlled collapse. Our ship switches to passive glide. The engines fall silent. Internal systems begin to align with the pulses, displaying soft lights that blink in time. It becomes easy to lose track of thought, to breathe with the beat, to close your eyes and feel your chest rise and fall, not in your own rhythm, but in theirs. We pass the first visible pulsar, a white-hot dot, barely brighter than a moon, spinning 30 times a second. Its beam, invisible to the eye, flicks across the ship in perfect measure. The effect is subtle. A tingle across our instruments, a flicker of static down the spine. We mark its position, but do not disturb it. It is performing. We are only here to listen as we follow the spiral inward. Each curve brings new variations. The beams of some pulsars interfere constructively, amplifying into slow waves that pass through space like deep breaths. Others cancel gently, creating pockets of stillness, places where time feels to fold briefly inward before continuing on. It is not random. It is not even improvised. It feels composed, as if the universe in its quietest places has written music using mass and magnetism. We float into a region where 5 pulsars turn in symmetrical paths around a central void, an empty space where a black hole once was, now quiet. The pulses align here in a perfect spiral of resonance. The space within this ring feels heavy, not with gravity, but with intention. The pulses echo in counterpoint, and for a moment, we feel suspended within a chord, a harmony made from mass, a stillness carried on the spin of ancient stars. Our ship begins to respond, not mechanically, but gently. Lights pulse with the rhythm. Internal temperature adjusts, matching the measured warmth of the field. Even breath ours slows, sinks. You might notice your heartbeat softening to match the pace of a neutron star spinning 7,116 times per second. But instead of speeding you up, it calms. The pace of so many precise rotations somehow slows time, eases thought. Every beat is a reminder. Even collapse can be orderly. Even the end of fusion can create beauty. As we reach the spiral's innermost arc, we discover a cluster of millisecond pulsars, dozens of them. Their beams flick faster than eye or mind can follow, but their collective motion slows the field around them. This is the heart of the spiral, a luminous knot of rhythm, too fine for chaos. Each pulsar feeds the other's motion, locked in mutual gravitational rhythm. It is not a web, it is a score, written across light years in perfect pitchless tone. We hover here for a while. The instruments go still. The hull stops vibrating. It is as if even the ship has chosen to rest. Outside there is no flash, no swirl, only the spiral's quiet turning. The beams never align. They do not crescendo. There is no finale, only continuity, an endless, precise unfolding. This is not a place to measure, it is a place to feel. In this quiet spiral we begin to understand something ancient, that even when stars die they do not vanish. They remember, in motion, in spin, in the soft, consistent rhythm of presence. These pulses have echoed for millions of years. Some will echo for millions more. Long after we pass, the spiral will still sing, unchanging, unheard perhaps, but no less beautiful. Eventually, we begin to move again, not by choice, but by motion already begun. The spiral does not ask us to stay. It releases us gently. The pulses grow softer, less aligned. We pass the outer arm once more, hearing the tones fade into background static. The stars beyond become visible again. New spirals await. But as we drift onward, we carry the rhythm in our steps, in our thoughts, in the hush between words. The spiral that sings in silence has woven itself into us, not as a song but as a presence. And ahead we see something strange, a glow, not steady, not curved, but scattered. A spiral undone perhaps, or one never fully formed. Debris, or a dream. We float toward it now, weightless, breath deep, heart steady.
At first, it appears as little more than a scatter of light, irregular, uneven, and faint. The sensors show no tight curvature, no gravitational center strong enough to bend the surrounding stars. It isn't marked in old star charts. It doesn't pulse, hum, or glow in steady rhythm. But there's a suggestion in the drift, a curl trying to form, a spiral in potential, half realized, half scattered, left hanging in space like a brushstroke that never found its canvas. We approach slowly. The ship's navigation system hesitates for a moment, searching for vectors, a path through, but finds none. Not because there is no order, but because the order here is incomplete. The unfinished spiral is a graveyard of intention, remnants of dying stars that began to spiral,
whose dust and fragments once turned together in elegant arcs. But somewhere along the way, the symmetry fractured. Perhaps a collision disrupted the structure. Perhaps a gravitational nudge pulled its heart apart. Perhaps it was never meant to finish. We enter through the ghost of what may have been an outer arm. The dust here is irregular. Some dense clusters, others almost empty. Nothing glows, nothing pulls, and yet the path is suggested. A curving stream of matter, just out of alignment, still slowly turning but never closing. Like the fore of motion more than motion itself. As we drift forward, it becomes clear that this spiral never reached a center. Its arcs begin, but do not end. In this region, we begin to see fragments, pieces of stars or planets or moons, unshaped, slowly tumbling through space. Some are large, their surfaces pocked and frozen. Others are fine clouds of metallic vapor, stretched thin over light years. The motion here is disjointed. Some of these objects move along arcs, others tumble freely. But even in their difference, there is a common direction. A pull not toward a center, but toward a pattern that never completed. It is not chaos, it is unfinished harmony. We pass a large mass, an ancient iron core from a destroyed planet. Its gravity is weak, but the dust around it forms a faint crescent, trailing behind it like a veil. As we glide past, we catch glimpses of former structure, impact craters melted smooth, fragments of silicate shell reaccumulating around the edges. Not decay exactly, more like frozen becoming. A shape waiting for a shape to form around. Further in, we find something stranger still, a broken ring, orbiting nothing. Suspended mid-spiral, it arcs through space as if still trying to circle an absent star. Each fragment of the ring moves independently now, but in such close coordination that it looks whole from a distance, like a ghost of structure, holding form in defiance of time. It is beautiful in its defiance, and in its patience. The deeper we go, the more the sense of almost deepen. A fragment of a nebula appears on one side, faint hydrogen trails arcing in half curves. On the other, a field of frozen water vapor, drifting like slow mist. Neither has density enough to shine, but as we move between them, the ship's hull begins to reflect soft, scattered light, like moonlight on broken glass. The spiral speaks in these glimmers, not in full sentences, but in fragments, phrases, dreams of shape, and then, quiet. We reach what might have been the core, but instead of mass or gravity, or a collapsed star, we find only a field of gentle motion, particles turning in open arcs, forming no center. It's like looking at a whirlpool just as it disappears. The gravity is faint here. There is no pull, no anchor, but there is still motion. The pattern persists, not bound, but remembered. The unfinished spiral did not fail, it simply let go. And as we drift at its center, not its heart, but its hollow, we feel something soft settle into our awareness, that not all stories complete, not all spirals must tighten. Some continue outward forever, in search of a center they no longer need. Here, the silence is different. Not the hush of space, not the quiet of still stars, but a contemplative kind of pause, as if the spiral itself is still thinking, still shaping, still wondering whether to continue. We stay here longer than we expect. There is something oddly restful about incompletion, the freedom of a line not closed, the softness of an idea still unfolding. The unfinished spiral is not trying to be perfect. It is simply becoming, slowly, indefinitely, without conclusion. And when we finally begin to drift outward, the path does not close behind us. The arc continues, bending toward a place we'll never see, where the spiral may one day resume, or dissolve, or curl into something entirely new. There is peace in that. We pass the outer debris one final time. The same fragments we saw before now shimmer in a slightly different alignment, not because they've moved, but because we've changed our angle. That too is the spiral, perception altering what we think is form. Beyond the final turn, the blackness returns, but something pulses far ahead, subtle, golden, with just enough curvature to suggest a new path, perhaps another spiral, Perhaps a spiral born from this incompletion, a spiral built on letting go. We follow, quiet as ever, into that wide and glowing dark.
It isn't bright. No sharp beams, no dazzling glare. It appears more like a shimmer. A faint, golden haze stretching across the void in soft, rippling arcs. From a distance, it seems unmoving. But as we draw closer, we begin to see the subtle motion within. Ribbons of slow-turning light, like silk drifting through water, coiling in spirals of pale bronze and faded silver. We've arrived at the reflective spiral, a structure built not of dust, not of flame, but of mirror-like remnants adrift in the deep. Here, the stars do not burn. They bounce. This spiral was shaped not by explosion or gravity collapse, but by the long, slow scattering of debris from ancient star systems. Fragments of shattered moons, metallic crusts of forgotten planets, and crystalline shells of frozen atmospheres. These pieces, dense and strong, endure, carried by the soft press of radiation pressure and the gentle guidance of galactic wind. They found one another. Over time, they aligned, glinting off each other, forming a vast, coiling sea of light that shines only by what it catches. The ship approaches carefully, adjusting its flight path to avoid sending too much disturbance into the delicate field. We coast through the outer arc, and immediately we're surrounded by reflections. Not overwhelming, not artificial, but gentle, ambient, soft. The hull lights dim automatically, and our viewports fill with a golden wash, like morning light through thick clouds. The stars behind us are still visible, but distorted, bent, and scattered across the thousands of slow-turning fragments drifting outside. These fragments are flat, layered, and highly reflective. Some no bigger than leaves, others large as continents. They aren't aligned mechanically. They don't form panels or walls, but together their motions create an undulating field that glows softly with the light of everything around it. They shimmer not because they generate light, but because they receive it fully, without resistance. Each piece accepts what comes and gives it back, not in the same shape, not in the same direction, but beautifully diffused. Inside the spiral, we begin to see the full effect. Light echoes, reflections of reflections, turning slowly in curved layers. We pass between two broad fields of metallic fragments, and as we do, the ship itself appears all around us, reflected again and again, smaller, dimmer, more distant each time, as though we are sailing within a memory of our own motion. These are not sharp mirrors. Nothing is perfect here. Every reflection is softened by distance, by curve, by the gentle warp of time and position. And yet, as we float, we begin to see shapes, outlines, silhouettes, sometimes of the ship, sometimes of stars, and sometimes something stranger. You may notice as the ship turns with the spiral that certain fragments reflect light in ways that create patterns, not designs, not symbols, but arrangements. Light ripples across the spiral like language never spoken, like breath across still water. The patterns move with us, or rather, we move through them. The spiral is not reacting, it is simply continuing to reflect, and in doing so, we begin to see what we bring into it. Our own paths, our own shapes, bent gently back to us. It's easy to grow quiet here. The ship's systems fall into a hush. Even thoughts begin to settle. When everything around you mirrors, you begin to listen more, breathe deeper, move slower. The reflective spiral is not about watching. It is about witnessing, not what the universe shows us, but what we show the universe. We pass near a particularly large arc of reflective debris, hundreds of kilometers wide, softly curving in the spiral's inner arm. Its surface is composed of thin, slowly tumbling plates, perhaps the remains of an ancient planet's outer crust, frozen in time, and polished by millennia of windless drift. As we float past, these plates begin to shift slightly in their alignment, not abruptly,
but as if exhaling, and the light they catch bounces softly through space, projecting a kaleidoscope of golden reflections all around us. The ship is bathed in patterned light, the floor, the walls, our own hands, dappled with drifting lattices of glow. There's something almost sacred in it. The way the light doesn't chase, doesn't blind, just reflects, just is. Within the spiral's core, the reflections grow quieter, more diffuse. The density of fragments thins, and we begin to see light from farther and farther away bent across the field. A star, perhaps 100 light-years distant, appears near us, its photons curved and scattered across thousands of reflective surfaces until it feels close, intimate, but it isn't real. Not as we see it. It is an echo, a dream of starlight shaped by debris and time. We pause the ship. Outside, the spiral continues to turn, its arms curling slowly outward, like the petals of a flower never meant to close. We float in silence, letting the light wash over us. The reflections change with every breath. The movement of the ship, the pulse of distant stars, even the faint heat of our own systems. Everything contributes, everything shapes the reflection, and in a way, we do too. There is no final center here, no core. The spiral fades gradually into shadow. Its inner arms grow fainter, its reflections more sparse, until it becomes indistinguishable from the background dark. A soft conclusion, not a collapse, not a death, just light, gently letting go. We turn the ship, passing through the final arms, where the last shards drift apart, no longer arranged, just moving freely through space. Even here, they catch light, a single photon glancing off a far-flung plate, a dim glow from our own hull mirrored back at us. From hundreds of kilometers away, we leave slowly, not wanting to disturb even the dust. And as the spiral recedes behind us, we carry its glow, not on our skin, but somewhere deeper. The reflective spiral teaches nothing. It offers no wisdom, only this: that light returns, not always in the way it left, but always, gently, beautifully. It returns, and now ahead, blackness once again, but not empty. Far in the distance, a dense cloud rises, not soft, not still, but swirling. We read its motion on the sensors: fast, hot and full of noise. A spiral born from collapse, a spiral near birth. But we are not there yet. We rest, for just a moment longer, in the last soft glint of reflection, and then we drift forward.
The darkness ahead is not the quiet emptiness we've grown used to. It stirs, faintly at first, like smoke caught in a low breeze. Our instruments pick up motion, rising density, subtle heat. The space beyond is filled not with the relics of collapse but with motion that has just begun. We ease toward it with care, letting the engines hum low, matching our breath to the soft increase in background energy. This spiral is different. This is the spiral of first warmth. A place where dying stars long extinguished have seeded the conditions for birth, where heat is not memory but emergence. At the spiral's edge, gas swells into soft, translucent ribbons that curl through the black like veins of color through stone. The temperature here is higher than anything we've passed through in some time, but still gentle, warm, not hot. These are clouds of hydrogen and helium slowly collapsing under their own weight, drawn into coiling motion by a gravity not yet strong enough to ignite, but persistent. We pass through the outermost curve and find ourselves inside a spiral of gathering. There are no flares, no sparks, no explosions, but something stirs in the middle of it all, something that makes even the ship feel as if it's holding its breath. The motion here is smooth but thick. The gases resist slightly as we move through, like passing through layers of mist soaked in heat. The colors are soft but growing bolder: burnt orange, copper red, blushes of lavender where molecules shift energy states and emit faint light. Dust moves in graceful spirals, drawn into denser folds that ripple like silk curtains in a warm breeze. Everything feels as though it's leaning forward, preparing to wake.
yet content to remain in this suspended prelude a little longer. Time here stretches, not in endlessness, but in expectancy. This spiral isn't remembering the past, it's imagining the future. Deeper inside, the structures become more defined. Pockets of gas swirl inward toward invisible nodes. Protostars in the making. They are not visible yet. Not truly. But the heat around them increases. And we see their early shells of matter spinning tighter with every orbit. We pass close to one such forming body. There is no surface, just a brightening fog dense with potential. Pressing inward, compressing. The ship's sensors show rising temperatures. Still too low for ignition, but rising nonetheless. In 1,000 years perhaps, this will be a red dwarf. In 1,000,000, perhaps more. But now it is simply coming. That here is enough. We drift further into the spiral's middle curve. This section is filled with starless cores, compact knots of gas and dust that have passed the threshold of stability. Each one draws matter toward itself in slow arc. Their orbits overlap and braid together, forming thick lanes of motion that shimmer with warm light scattered by interstellar dust. Occasionally a magnetic wave flutters through the field, disturbing the dust in gentle pulses, like the breath of the spiral itself. We follow one such wave as it passes beneath us, illuminating the path forward in soft, golden flashes. Near what may one day be the spiral's core, we encounter the first true ignition point. A newborn star, barely stable, hidden behind a thick cloud of gas that still shrouds its light. We don't see it directly, but we feel it. The gravity changes subtly, tightening. The radiation pressure flattens nearby dust into a swirling disk. The surrounding gas glows faintly from within. The star is only hours, days, perhaps weeks old. Infant by stellar measure. But already, it is shaping space. Already the spiral has given rise to new fire. We linger there in orbit for a while, letting the light ripple across the ship's hull in irregular pulse. The cloud flickers dim, then dimmer, then softly brighter again. As the young star's chaotic first moments pulse outward, we listen, not with instruments, but with stillness. And in the rhythm of the glow, we feel it. This is where things begin again, where the materials left behind by dead stars, scattered for ages, have found new form, not as relics, but as kindling. Further in, other ignition points bloom, subtle, shielded, still forming. We pass a forming binary, two nascent stars spinning slowly around each other, sharing their birth cloud like siblings wrapped in a single blanket. Their motion is tender, balanced, intimate, one slightly brighter, one slightly more massive, but both feeding, both growing. Their spiral arms curl around each other like vines seeking light, and in the glow of their quiet orbit, we sense not fire, but harmony. This is a spiral made not of death, not of memory, not even of stillness. It is made of beginning, the slow gathering of all that once fell apart, the rearranging of dust and gas into new possibility. Nothing here hurries. Every curve of the spiral is patient, letting gravity and heat do their slow, invisible work. The stars forming now may one day have planets, oceans, even minds that look up and wonder. But for now, they are cradled in this warm spiral, rocking in the arms of cosmic rhythm. As we move toward the outermost edge, the light thins once more. The heat fades, the spiral loosens, but its motion continues. A soft echo of formation that will go on long after we have passed through. It does not need us. It does not even know we're here, but still it shares its warmth. It's still forming stars, its quiet breath of change. And now ahead in the dark, a strange shadow appears, darker than the space around it, denser. It doesn't glow, it absorbs. The sensors hesitate. This may be something else entirely. A spiral of silence deeper than any we've known, or perhaps one born not of stars but of shadow. But we don't turn away. We prepare to drift on.
At first, there is only darkness, not the emptiness of distant space, but something fuller, quieter. A darkness that feels closer, heavier, wrapped around itself like thick velvet.
The light from nearby stars dims not because they are farther away, but because this region bends it, draws it inward, softens it into nothing. We have arrived at the spiral of quiet gravity, a vast and ancient structure composed not of light, but of pull. It does not shine. It does not reflect. It simply draws all things toward its calm center, where gravity rests like a deep breath held long. We begin our descent along the spiral's outer curvature, guided not by sight, but by force. The pull is subtle at first, barely distinguishable from drift, but gradually it begins to shape our motion, nudging us gently inward. This spiral was formed long ago by the slow collapse of several massive stars whose cores, unable to resist their own weight, folded into black holes. These remnants now form the spiral's arms, dark, quiet wells in space, each one wrapped in a dense halo of gravity and invisible motion. They do not feed violently. They do not consume. They wait. We pass the first of these quiet anchors. It is nearly invisible. Only a faint distortion in the starlight behind it gives it away, a soft lensing effect that warps space like heat rising from stone. Around it, debris drifts slowly in long, dark arcs. Some of the fragments orbit, others spiral gently inward, vanishing across the event horizon without sound or light. There is no drama here, no tearing, just surrender. The matter glows faintly as it falls, heated by friction and the slow compression of gravity. But even that light is brief. Within moments, it fades, as if the black hole had simply absorbed the moment. Our ship keeps its distance. We are drawn, but not caught. The path curves wider here, shaped by a secondary current, residual spin from the collapse that birthed this spiral. The arc leads us toward the next neck, and the next, each one separated by long stretches of dusky quiet. The dust between them glows faintly in infrared heat, left over from ancient movements. Some of it has coalesced into rings. Others drift like fog across the spiral, thickening in places, dissolving in others. Through it all, the quiet pull persists. Inside the spiral, time bends subtly. Clocks on board begin to desync with signals outside the field. Minutes stretch. The ship's systems adapt. We notice the change less through instruments and more through sensation. Breath slows. Thoughts deepen. Motion seems to take on a dreamlike softness. The further inward we move, the more the spiral feels like a great hand slowly closing, not to grasp, but to hold. Gravity is not a threat here. It is a cradle. And in that cradle, we begin to notice something unexpected. Structure. Thin filaments of cooled gas, aligned along gravitational ridges, spiral inward, like the ribs of a shell. They shimmer faintly when disturbed by passing radiation, forming fleeting outlines of what could be the arms of galaxies unborn. It's as though gravity itself remembers the shapes of stars and continues to fold space around that memory, even in the absence of light. These filaments are not solid. They are barely there, but together they form a visible map of influence, lines where gravity has sculpted stillness. We drift through one such line now. The ship moves without input, pulled gently by the spiral's field. Outside, dust glides past the viewports in long, slow waves. It does not rush. It does not scatter. Each particle seems to know exactly where it belongs. Every curve is smooth, every motion deliberate. The spiral's inner regions are too dense for light to escape. Yet there is no sensation of being trapped, only held. Everything here is falling, and falling feels like flight. The central zone is obscured, surrounded by a shell of cold gas that no light has pierced in eons. Sensors register immense mass. Not a single black hole, but a system. A dance of dark hearts orbiting in tight formation, generating waves of gravity that ripple outward through the spiral's arms. We can't see them, but we feel their rhythm, like a drumbeat beneath silence, slow, deep, constant. We do not enter the core. We pass nearby, letting the ship ride the outermost edge of that central gravity, skimming the tide of invisible waves. And in that motion, something becomes clear. This spiral is not about loss, not about collapse. It is about containment. It is the gathering of all things that have fallen, not into oblivion, but into order. A kind of peace so deep it no longer needs light to be reached. As we arc outward again, following the spiral's widening tail, we pass regions of near stillness fields, where gravity balances perfectly with inertia, where dust and debris simply hover, unmoving. They are like deep wells of pause, carved into the spiral's breath. If you looked long enough, you might see a flake of ice caught mid-fall, never touching anything, simply suspended between past and future. These still points feel sacred, not because they resist gravity, but because they exist at its edge, perfectly balanced. Our ship rises slowly out of the spiral's influence, carried by momentum now. The pull softens. The stars beyond begin to straighten again, their light less warped. The darkness around us fades back into the familiar black of deep space. But we carry the spiral with us, not in the ship, not in memory alone, but in something deeper. In understanding that gravity, the force that pulls all things inward, can also be soft, can be quiet, can be patient enough to become a spiral of stillness. Far ahead, light returns, scattered, radiant, strange. Another spiral awaits, one born not of mass, but of radiation. A place where the last flickers of dying stars dance across the cosmic sea like fireflies. But we do not run. We move forward, slow and steady, leaving the spiral of quiet gravity behind.
From a distance, it appears fractured. Irregular pulses, thin rays stretching outward in no obvious order. Bursts of light that come and go with no apparent rhythm. But as the ship draws closer, a pattern emerges, delicate and laced with quiet intent. Threads of radiation wind through the dark in long, soft arcs, curving around a spiral path we can barely see. These threads are not solid or stable. They flicker in and out of existence, like echoes of forgotten thoughts drifting through the universe. And yet, despite their transience, they belong to something ancient and beautiful. A spiral formed entirely by the final emissions of dying stars. This is not a graveyard. It is a gallery. What surrounds us now are the final sighs of matter. Soft jets of particles and radiation ejected in the last phases of stellar decay. White dwarfs releasing their last photons. Neutron stars cooling into silence. Atoms recombining in pockets of gas that will never birth stars. All of it draped across space in long looping trails of faint glow, folding together into a spiral whose arms are as wide as a galaxy and as thin as mist. It is light not meant to last, scattered across the void by systems no longer holding shape. And still, it glows, softly, insistently, like embers refusing to die. We pass into the outermost curve and immediately the ship is bathed in flickers, waves of soft X-rays, slivers of ultraviolet, the faintest gamma pulse. None of it strong, none of it harmful, just residual heat and light, moving outward from their origins in a steady spiral pattern. The ship's hull glows faintly as particles brush against it, each contact like the kiss of a long-forgotten sun. We dim all internal systems, letting the glow outside become our illumination. It washes through the cabin in changing hues, deep blue, rose gold, a flash of green that fades before we can even name it. The spiral curves inward with grace, though its structure is fragile. There is no dust here to sculpt its arms, no gas thick enough to hold them together. Only radiation flowing along old gravitational paths, carved by the long-gone stars that once held this region in orbit. The absence of mass has left the spiral unanchored, but not without purpose. Like starlight glinting on the surface of a sea, it moves not because it must, but because it still can. We follow one stream of photons across several light minutes. They originated in the cooling shell of a white dwarf several million years ago. The star itself no longer shines,
It may already be on its way to becoming a black dwarf, invisible and cold. But this one final glow escaped its surface before long silent. It hums low and warm, and we listen. The deeper we drift, the more frequent the streams become. Some cross paths with each other, creating moments of brightness that shimmer, then vanish. Others form brief arcs that linger for hours before dispersing into invisible trails. Occasionally we pass through one, an entire wavefront of light that once danced across the cooling crust of a neutron star, now wrapping around us in a brief, silent embrace. The ship hums in response. Lights flicker gently. There is no fear, only immersion. We approach the innermost arc, and here, the glow becomes most intense. Not in brightness, but in presence. Every direction flickers with motion. The space around us feels almost sentient, as if the radiation were listening as much as glowing. We find the core not a star, not a black hole, but an emptiness that glows with its own quiet. It is surrounded by a dense braid of light emissions, wound so tightly they seem like threads of woven starlight. This is the point around which the spiral once turned, a remnant too small to detect, perhaps, or simply gone, but its light remains, unwinding endlessly in tribute. The ship slows, we pause, and in the stillness, we realize something. None of this light is supposed to be here. These emissions should have scattered long ago, lost to the depths of space. But something in this spiral, a subtle interplay of mass, magnetism and memory, has bent them into orbit, and in that motion, they remain, not indefinitely, not forever, but longer than they were meant to. It's as if the universe itself refused to let them vanish without one last turn. We float, suspended in glow. The radiation sings softly against the ship's sensors, each pulse a tone just at the edge of silence. Our eyes grow accustomed to the shimmer, our thoughts slow to the pace of its curves. We are not traveling anymore. We are part of it, another object, reflecting, receiving, letting go. Eventually we begin to rise out of the spiral. The glow thins, the particle streams fade, the silence grows deeper. But even as we leave it behind, traces of the spiral remain. A flicker on the viewport, a shimmer on the edge of the cabin wall, light clinging to memory just a moment longer. Ahead, the space darkens again, but not fully. There is something stirring, a flicker not of fading light, but of forming connection. Not energy, not motion, something between, but we don't reach for it yet. We carry the fading light with us, letting it glow one last time in the hollow of our breath.
There is a silence deeper than vacuum, deeper than gravity, deeper than even the last breath of fading light. It is the space between stars, between systems, between orbits and destinations. Most call it empty. Most move past it without pause. But here in this region so easily overlooked, a spiral has begun to form, not of mass, not of warmth, but of delicate bridges, long, slow arcs of low-density particles, invisible magnetic threads and subtle gravitational harmonies stretched across tens of light years. This is a spiral built not of what stars are, but of what they share. The unseen field that binds them in quiet companionship, even across vast distances. The ship slows as we enter. There is no light to follow, no clear structure, only a faint sense of curvature, subtle motions in the background noise of space. The sensors detect fluctuations in interstellar hydrogen. A rise, a fall, a rise again. Patterns that suggest orbit, that suggest a shape. But what truly reveals the spiral is rhythm. It's in the pause between particle pulses, in the quiet magnetic song stretched across empty space. This spiral is felt more than seen. We drift inward and slowly, faint structures begin to emerge, long, almost imperceptible tendrils of gas wind across the dark, denser in places, twisted by the magnetic fields left behind by long-dead stars. These trails don't glow, but they do glimmer when struck by cosmic rays. Not often just flashes. A flicker here, a ripple there. It is like watching lightning on the other side of a memory.
Not enough to guide, just enough to remind us that we're not alone. Somewhere to port, a neutron star pulses, its light faint, its gravity distant. But the arc of its field reaches into this spiral, pulling at a drifting band of gas. Elsewhere, two brown dwarfs orbit in silence, and their combined influence shapes a slow ribbon of matter that curls gently around them and flows outward into space. All these forces, so small on their own, have begun to weave together, like threads drawn inward by a shared longing. The result is this: a spiral of connection, not tight, not perfect, but present. We follow the spiral's outer edge, gliding past a slow-turning field of plasma that stretches across 5 light-years. Its motion is almost imperceptible, but the sensors detect alignment. The particles are following something, perhaps the faded wake of a long-past star, perhaps a wavefront born from ancient collisions. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they move together, and that motion draws us in. Further along, we pass near a corridor of dust, loose, thin, barely there. But as we drift beside it, the ship registers wave interference from an unseen source, a passing frequency. The dust is vibrating, not randomly, but in time. It's as if somewhere distant stars are still speaking to one another, and the dust remembers how to listen. The vibration is soft, like the shiver of a string pulled taut across the dark, and it continues for minutes before slowly dissolving into silence. The spiral tightens and we move inward. Still, there is no core, no glowing center, just more lines, more folds of gentle force, threads of gravity between stars that have never met, between systems whose light will never touch. Yet here, in this place, their influence intersects. It forms a map not of destinations, but of between places, like paths through a forest drawn only by where the trees are not. We pause near the spiral's middle band, a region where several of these threads converge into a subtle field. The ship drifts, its systems in passive mode, and we float there for a while, letting the background frequency wash over us. It's quiet, not silent, just quiet, like breath, like pulse. If you close your eyes, you might begin to feel the spiral itself, curving not around you but through you. It is not a structure made of parts, it is a structure made of relationship. Nothing here stands alone. We move forward again, drawn not by thrust, but by alignment. The spiral continues, stretching outward in graceful, loose arc. We pass near a shell of ionized gas, its edges faintly rippling from pressure differentials, a leftover from a long-forgotten nova, now faded into motionless haze. And yet the gas still follows a spiral path. It remembers the explosion's arc, and the arc becomes part of this greater pattern. At the innermost part of the spiral, we find only one object, a tiny, cooled remnant. It is no longer active, no longer glowing, no longer exerting much force, but its presence, its mass, anchors the spiral's final turn. Around it, the fields bend gently, guiding what little matter remains into the last graceful loop. This remnant does not command, it does not lead, it simply is, and because it is, the spiral continues. We drift past it quietly, letting the gravity nudge us into the last arc. The stars ahead return, distant, bright, scattered. The space becomes emptier again, or so it seems, but we know now that emptiness is an illusion, that between every light lies a thread, a whisper, a curve of motion so soft it can only be seen by stepping into it. The spiral between stars fades behind us, not in light, but in feeling, and yet the sense of being surrounded by connection, of being part of the curve remains. It lingers not in memory, but in awareness. Ahead we see something new, a region dense with ancient satellites, failed colonies, drifting architecture, a spiral of machines, of things built, then abandoned, a place of endings not natural, but made. But we wait, we let the spiral of relationships fall into the quiet behind us. From a distance, the spiral doesn't shine. It blinks, faintly, irregularly. A constellation of half-lit beacons scattered like brittle stars across the dark. The signals are weak, intermittent old transmission pulses, obsolete frequencies, decaying feedback loops drifting through the cosmic background like echoes of a language no one speaks anymore. We follow the path of one such signal, a flickering radio tone repeating every 73 seconds, and it leads us into the spiral's outer arc where the machines begin to appear. They come into view slowly, rising from the dark like statues forgotten in a forest. Metal husks floating in soft, decaying orbits, their outer shells rusted by micrometeoroid strikes, solar flares, and time. Each one is different in shape, some long and skeletal, others squat and geometric, a few delicate as spun glass, but all of them share a sense of stillness, of waiting. Many are broken. A few blink with the last glimmers of emergency power. Some drift in gentle spirals of their own, their internal gyroscopes long failed, spinning quietly without direction. We move deeper into the spiral, and the structures grow denser. Small satellites, derelict probes, forgotten habitats, robotic mining stations left behind by civilizations that may no longer exist. Their purposes are lost to time, but their presence remains, and they orbit in a pattern, a slow, deliberate curve that suggests they were once aligned, perhaps to follow a path or protect a corridor. But the corridor has faded. The goal, whatever it was, no longer matters. The machines drift on. Inside the ship, we watch as fragments of dead languages scroll across one of the consoles. The ship's passive receivers pick up stray data packets, ancient code caught in endless loops. The fragments are broken, overlapping, nonsensical. But occasionally, there is something clear. An update request from a weather array, a heartbeat ping from a medical drone, an old cargo manifest listing minerals no one mines anymore. These aren't cries for help. They're just instructions still trying to be followed, long after the need is gone. We pass near a field of observation buoys, dozens of them, linked once by some silent network. They hover in a loose arc, their once precise lattice now wobbling as gravitational drift pulls them apart. Each one sends out a soft chirp every few seconds. A quiet "I'm here," echoing into a channel no one is listening to. We don't answer. We simply pass between them, careful not to disturb their stillness. They are ghosts in orbit, performing rituals with no audience. Further in, the machines grow larger. We drift beneath the husk of a way station, its frame twisted, its outer plating stripped bare by centuries of exposure. The interior still glows faintly in places, lit by the last charges of emergency cells. Through a viewport, we see empty chairs, moss-like corrosion growing across control panels, the gentle float of debris long unanchored. This place once pulsed with purpose, now it rests. The spiral's pattern tightens. Here, the machines begin to move not randomly, but in slow synchronicity. Something guides them, perhaps old programming, perhaps residual magnetic alignment. Small maintenance drones orbit broken satellites. Tug pods drift along supply routes they once served. A string of obsolete cargo haulers trails each other in a line, like ships following a captain who vanished long ago. It is not order exactly, but it is a kind of memory. The spiral holds their motions like a melody nearly forgotten. We navigate carefully, the ship's path guided by proximity sensors and predictive curves. It feels like threading through a clock whose gears no longer fit, but still turn. Each machine adds to the quiet, a hum of decayed signal, of low electric breath, of metal that shifts only when it forgets to stop. At the spiral's heart, we find a terminal, a station larger than the rest, partially functional. Its core still spins. Solar sails stretch outward, torn but catching just enough radiation to power a few blinking status lights. We approach slowly, The ship's systems connect without prompt. An old compatibility handshake from centuries ago, buried in our software like a forgotten greeting. The station speaks not in words, not in full data, just flashes of code, memory banks too degraded to translate. But here and there, bits of instruction. Maintain orbit, await instructions, calibrate sensors, life support nominal. There is no life here. There hasn't been for hundreds of years, but the station doesn't know that. It continues softly, patiently. It was not built to hope. It was built to endure. We hover there for a time, listening to the fragments. Outside, the spiral continues to turn gently, mechanically. These machines are not grieving. They are not lost. They simply are, still in motion, still aligned, still connected by old intention. Eventually, we drift away. The terminal dims behind us. The signal grows thin. We pass once more through the outer spiral, where the smallest machines drift freely now, too degraded to hold orbit. Some flick, others are silent. A few have cracked open, their interiors spilling slow ribbons of plastic and cable into the void. We leave them in peace. They are not waiting to be saved. They are completing their last orbit, and then space clears. The spiral fades. Ahead, a nebula glow, not one we recognize. Its edges shimmer in layered pastels. Thin clouds curling inward in a spiral made of color and sound. A place not shaped by machines or stars or matter, but by resonance. A spiral made of memory turning into light again. We prepare to approach.
Even before we enter it, the spiral begins to touch us. Long before the ship crosses its threshold, vibrations hum through the hull. Low, melodic, never constant, but always smooth. These aren't frequencies in the traditional sense. They are shifts, delicate undulations in space-time, each one shaped by the echoes of matter, long since scattered, stars long since extinguished, voices long since silenced. But they are not gone. They've been held here, wrapped into a spiral of motion and memory. This is a place where the universe itself seems to remember. Visually, the spiral appears translucent at first. No hard structures, no dense bands of dust, just faint color, layered and ever-changing, like light cast through stained glass, projected onto smoke. Mauve folds into amber, sapphire blurs into silver. These hues aren't from particles or gas in the traditional sense. They are the visual translation of subtle harmonics, pressure waves traveling through residual molecular clouds, stirred by the last notes of dying stars. In this spiral, matter does not dominate. It follows the music. The ship enters slowly. No engines, just drift. The field of resonance is strong enough to shape our course without effort. Inside, everything becomes soft. Instruments blink more slowly, as if syncing with the space around them. The ship's systems begin picking up patterns in the local vibrations. Not language, not data, but rhythm. And from rhythm, meaning emerges. Some of these harmonics match known stellar signatures, resonance patterns from red giant cores or pulsar echoes. Others are unknown. Perhaps they belong to stars that never lived long enough to form charts. Perhaps they are the layered voices of civilizations that hummed to their dying suns in farewell. One harmonic stands out. It's deep, pulsing every few seconds, subsonic and slow. We follow it through the spiral's outer arc, and it guides us like a song echoing through a canyon. Around us, the colors pulse in time, rippling gently across invisible fields. We pass near what appears to be a dense cloud of helium ions, but instead of random motion, the cloud vibrates, its shape responding to the low tone, aligning with it. It's like watching mist dance to a song we cannot hear. Deeper in, the spiral structure reveals itself in waves. It isn't fixed, it breathes. Bands of pressure expand and contract in gentle succession, like the rise and fall of a sleeping world's tide. Within these bands, tiny particles drift, carbon grains, silicates, molecular water. The vibrations pass through them, reshaping them slightly, aligning their motion. It is not forceful, it is not controlling, it is simply resonance, guiding motion, like wind carving patterns in sand. We float through one of these pressure bands,
and the entire ship responds. The hull hums with soft tension. The lights dim slightly, and within that moment, something stirs. A pattern, faint but deliberate, passes through our systems, an echo of a sensor pulse used by a long-defunct observation satellite. The ship doesn't generate it. It's reflected, imprinted into the pressure wave from a time long past. The satellite is gone, but its signal remains, not recorded, remembered by the space it passed through. We are surrounded by such memories, not recordings, not data, but impressions, vibrational fingerprints of what once was. We detect a rhythm that matches the decay signature of a collapsing white dwarf, another that mimics the harmonic cycle of water cycling beneath an icy moon. These aren't messages, they are reminders, not of information, but of presence. As we approach the spiral's middle arc, the color deepens. Everything grows warmer, not in temperature but in tone. The hues glow like deep coals, rich copper, soft plum, low gold. The pressure waves here are slower, thicker. The ship sways slightly, as though caught in the current of a tide too ancient to measure. We pass through an area that resonates at such low frequency, it bypasses our ears entirely. We feel it in the bones, in the breath, in the silence, between heartbeats. It is the slow song of gravity, remembering where stars once turned. And then, without warning, a new pattern begins. Not chaotic, not alarming, just different. A gentle oscillation, layered with overlapping frequencies. The ship translates it into sound, and for a moment, we hear what might have once been the harmonic trace of a lullaby. Too fragmented to follow, too abstract to replicate, but the feeling is unmistakable. Someone, somewhere, long ago passed through this spiral, and left behind more than motion. They left emotion, embedded in the folds of vibration. Perhaps it was a song sent to a satellite, a farewell embedded in a station system, or maybe just the silent hum of thought turned outward to the stars. It remains, not loud, but real. We drift near the center. There is no core, no mass, just convergence. Here, all harmonics pass through one another, not in collision, but in overlay. The result is a tone unlike any we've encountered. It shifts constantly, yet always feels whole, as if every resonance we've heard along this journey, all the spirals, all the remnants, have somehow been folded into this sound, not as notes, but as memory. It doesn't play, it persists. We stay here for a while. Systems paused, thrusters off. The ship hums in quiet harmony with the field. We float, not through space, but through time made soft. The spiral holds us, not tightly, not like gravity, but gently, like a song remembered just before sleep. When we begin to drift outward, the tones grow lighter, the waves lengthen. The light shifts from rich amber to pearlescent white, then to pale blue. At the edge of the spiral, the harmonics grow too faint to follow. The silence returns, not empty, but full of aftersound. We leave slowly, carrying not sound, but the impression of it, not melody, but the awareness of rhythm. This spiral has no mass to map, no remnants to scan, but its echo stays with us, nestled deep, like the memory of a voice that once called our name and still lingers in the breath of thought. Far ahead, a dark shape turns slowly, a spiral not of vibration, but of shadow. There are no stars within it, only the absence of light, not void, but silence, on a deeper scale.
Before we see it, we feel it. A stillness heavier than gravity. A silence that thickens as we approach. The stars around us dim, not from dust or gas, but from absence. Their light doesn't vanish. It withholds. The closer we get, the more the dark itself seems to take on shape. Lines bend in ways they shouldn't. Navigation systems drift off course and correct again. And through it all, we are drawn inward into the first curl of a spiral that isn't made of matter, light, or even sound. It's made of the spaces between those things. A spiral that holds not what is, but what is no longer. The spiral of deep shadow is ancient, perhaps older than the stars that birthed it. It is not carved by explosions or orbits. It was shaped by what disappeared. Black holes that have gone quiet, dark matter knots that never formed into galaxies. Echoes of entire systems swallowed before their light could travel. The result is a spiral not visible in the usual sense, but present in pressure, in temperature.
in how light fails to reflect. We move into its outermost arc, and the ship dims without being told. External light sensors lower automatically. Everything softens. Outside the viewport, there is almost nothing. Almost shapes move faintly, hinted at in silhouette. That's against a backdrop of stars, but against the absence of stars. Dark shapes that only reveal themselves by the way they bend the void behind them. Some seem to curve slightly, others stretch. All drift slowly in long arcs, suggesting motion that's not random, but deeply deliberate. These aren't debris. These are remnants so old, they no longer radiate, no longer react. They absorb. The ship passes through a wavefront, an old gravitational ripple left behind by something massive long ago. We feel it not as motion, but as compression, like breath taken in and not released. It doesn't push or pull, it presses. The spiral tightens slightly, and we adjust course without thinking. The ship doesn't resist. It turns as though it remembers the path. Further in, we find something unexpected. Not light, but texture. The dark here isn't smooth. It ripples faintly, like a surface disturbed by soft wind. Sensors trace long, slow currents, possibly from particles so faint, so cold, they barely interact. These streams form patterns, wide bands of nothing curling inward. Some resemble waves, others look like the ghost of orbit paths. Spirals within spirals, layered so subtly, they can only be detected through the way they fail to reflect background starlight. We pass close to one such path. It loops through a region where light bends drastically. An ancient gravity well, likely a collapsed object, whose influence remains even as its heat has vanished. The ship's hull creaks softly under the strain of nearby distortion, but it holds. We drift through, watching as the stars on the far side of the spiral blur and stretch, forming long arcs before snapping back into clarity. The darkness here is not total. It is dense, so dense it behaves like substance. Inside the spiral's midsection, time begins to behave strangely. Not broken, just softened. Ship systems report drift in onboard clocks. Seconds lengthen. Visual processing lags behind real time by fractions of a moment. It isn't dangerous, it's slow. The spiral wraps time around itself like a shawl. We respond in kind, reducing internal systems to minimum. The ship pulses once every minute to keep orientation, and otherwise we drift. No propulsion, no sound, just slow movement through curved quiet. At the heart of the spiral lies something too symmetrical to be natural. A sphere, perfectly dark, suspended in space like a wound in reality. Light bends away from it. The background behind it, already minimal, disappears completely. No radiation, no signal. The ship's instruments cannot detect its mass, yet we feel it. A presence at the center of absence. A silence so profound it becomes palpable. We do not approach too closely. We don't need to. The spiral moves around it gently, not pulled, not forced, as if every remnant in this place simply agreed to orbit what cannot be named. We drift near a smaller companion object, a dark satellite perhaps, long disconnected from purpose. Its hull reflects nothing, not even the faint radiation of the ship. But as we pass, something inside it stirs, a tiny release of pressure. Not air, not code, just a trace of gas escaping through a fracture. It curls away in a spiral, invisible, until struck by one of the few background photons still drifting through this region. For a moment, it glows, a tendril of soft silver, and then it's gone. We don't touch the satellite. We don't send a signal. This spiral is not for waking. It is for knowing, not by learning, by being with. Everything in the spiral of deep shadow teaches by presence, by gravity and silence, by how the stars behind you fade as you move forward, and how your own reflection disappears in the window when you try to look for it. This spiral does not show us what is left. It shows us what has been let go. Eventually we begin to curve outward again, not in escape, but in continuation. The dark does not resist. It does not hold us. We were never trapped. We simply moved within it, learned its rhythm, Let it pass through us. The pressure light, time resumes its usual pace. Stars reappear, tentative at first, then steady. The ship breathes again. Behind us, the spiral of deep shadow remains invisible. But we know it's there. We carry its weight in our quiet. Ahead, a strange warmth flares, unexpected, golden, rising like a candle in open air. A spiral not made by natural force, but by intention. A spiral of gathering, of meeting, of presence made visible.
We're still light years from the spiral's core when we notice something unusual. Small crystalline objects begin to appear, hovering, rotating slowly, not adrift but seemingly placed. They're shaped like lenses, thin and translucent, made of materials we can't identify. Some are single-paneled, others look like clusters of petals or frozen wings. They drift in arcs, their surfaces catching the ambient starlight and focusing it into brief, delicate halos. When we pass through one of these halos, we see not ourselves reflected, but glimpses of other places, other spirals, maybe, or memories caught in glass. Sensors show no propulsion, no tethers, no mechanisms, and yet these objects maintain a pattern. They're aligned in smooth, gentle turns that begin to form a structure. Not rigid, not mechanical, but deliberate. We're entering the spiral of witness. A structure made not from force, but from observation, from the act of presence itself. The spiral is wide, loose. It isn't bound by orbit or energy fields. Instead, it curves softly around a central space where nothing burns, nothing pulls. The objects we pass, the lenses, the frames, the slowly turning panels, each seem to hold some quiet purpose. Some reflect the stars behind us, but altered we see constellations as they were thousands of years ago. Others show fields of gas and dust we haven't encountered, as though they carry images from journeys not yet taken. A few display only color, slow, swirling gradients that shift as we drift by, as if tuned to emotion more than physics. The ship slows naturally, as though compelled to move more gently here. There's no resistance, no command, just suggestion. We follow it. Further in, we see larger structures, open, ring-like forms suspended in the spiral's arms, rotating slowly with impossible precision. Some are perfectly circular. Others are asymmetrical, shaped like droplets or question marks or symbols without name. And in the center of each ring floats a single object. A fragment, a relic, a piece of something ancient, an instrument, a sliver of hull, a faded scroll of text projected in low light across a curved pane. We understand slowly what this place is. This is where journeys are remembered, not cataloged, not decoded, simply witnessed. The spiral turns because others passed through it, not to change, not to claim it, but to be seen. We drift past one ring where an old spacefaring probe floats in still orbit. It's long since dead. No signal, no power, but its body has been preserved. Around it, several of the crystalline lenses are aligned, focusing light from different stars upon its surface. As each star's beam passes across its hull, a different texture emerges. Scorched panels, etched names, the reflection of something, someone who once built it. We don't know what the lenses are made from, but they see, and they show us what they see, if only briefly. Another structure holds no object at all, just a field of rotating crystals, arranged like a spiral within a spiral. Each one turns slowly, catching our movement, reflecting it, releasing it in different colors and tones. We realize, with a quiet kind of awe, that this field is responding to us, not with alarms or scans or defense, but with recognition. It sees that we are passing, and it remembers that we were here. In the innermost arc of the spiral of witness, we find the most delicate structures of all. Slender threads of golden fiber, somehow rigid in vacuum,
form long, gentle curves that stretch from one end of the spiral's arm to another. They are inscribed with tiny markings. None we can read, but as we pass, the ship's sensors translate their pattern into sound, a tone, then another, then a slow, unfolding melody that changes with our velocity. It's not a message, not exactly, it's a greeting, one shaped by proximity, by movement, by presence. At the center of the spiral, there is no monument, just a field of mirrored particles, barely visible, forming a nearly perfect sphere of silence. We stop there for a while, letting the ship rotate slowly, allowing the mirrors to reflect our path back to us. The spiral, we realize, is not here to explain. It does not archive. It simply remembers through reflection. Everything that passes becomes part of its curve. Every quiet journey, no matter how small, adds weight to the spiral's turn. We float in the center longer than planned. The hull lights dim, the systems soften their tone. Even our breath becomes part of the pattern. Slow, steady, matching the drift. You may find in this place that you remember something too. A shape, a sound, a feeling. Not from here, but felt more clearly here. The spiral of witness doesn't just reflect light, it reflects being. Eventually we begin to move again, gently. No thrust, just the slow curve out along the next arm, past the last of the lenses in the final frames. Some of them turn slowly as we leave, not following us, but adjusting to record our passage. We do not know who built them, or when. We only know that they've been waiting for us to pass, and now that we have, we are part of them. Beyond the spiral, the stars return in clarity, clear, quiet, still. But something brighter shimmers faintly far ahead. A soft golden arc that pulses in rhythm, not of orbit or of gravity, but of light itself breathing. A spiral not of things, but of time folded into radiance. And once again we prepare to follow.
From a distance, it doesn't dazzle. It shimmers. A soft, pulsing glow spreads across the darkness ahead in wide, curling bands, like the luminous wakes of comets stretched into a spiral across light years. The colors are muted: bronze, warm silver, candlelight amber. Nothing here is sharp. No flares, no violent bursts, just steady flickers, rising and fading, as if the whole spiral is lit by stars too shy to blaze. The ship moves slowly as we approach. There's no need for caution, but it feels wrong to rush. Every glimmer in this place seems timed, placed, meant to be witnessed one breath at a time. The sensors detect photons moving at unusually low speeds, not slowed by gravity or atmosphere, but by media. The space here is laced with an invisible fog, a barely perceptible haze of ultra-thin plasma or molecular mist that diffuses and bends light into these slow arcs. The result is a spiral where time seems to stretch, not because anything stops, but because everything waits. We pass into the outermost ring, and at once the cabin grows dimmer, not because we've lost light, but because the glow now surrounds us evenly. There are no shadows. Light here doesn't strike or reflect. It gathers like fog, curling in on itself. Outside the viewport, long strands of radiance drift like floating trails of stardust, curling inward along the spiral's shape. Each strand pulses faintly, in its own rhythm, as if breathing on a time scale slower than thought. These aren't beams from stars, they're emissions, remnants of old nebula, low-frequency radiation from distant quasars, light released by dying systems thousands of years ago, caught in the drag of this spiral's slow drifting veil. The particles in this region hold on to light, bending it, delaying it, releasing it like perfume into the air. It moves, but not with purpose. It wanders. The effect is breathtaking: trails of suspended light, long filaments glowing softly, folding in on themselves as they curl toward the spiral's heart. Inside the ship, we dim all controls. No need for artificial light. We float in gold and copper hues, each color washing over the cabin as we pass through different bands of light. Some are so faint they barely register,
Others thicken into gentle ribbons that drift across the hull. Each carries different, spectral fingerprints, some from white dwarfs, some from protostars, some from unknown origins entirely. This spiral isn't just slow, it's ancient. Light born before our journey began, before memory, before record. Still moving, still shining. We pass close to one of the brighter bands, a thick wave of golden light, folded tightly into a helix and trailing across the void. It shifts slightly as we near, not recoiling, not resisting, just adjusting its curl around our presence. We follow it for several minutes, maybe longer. Time here is harder to track. Every moment stretches, expands, folds back on itself. We pass along its length, watching faint pulses move from one end to the other, slower than any signal, slower than motion itself. Inside that light, we begin to see echoes, faint images not imprinted, but carried in the vibration. A planetary system perhaps caught in mid-collapse. A flicker of dust rings around a vanished moon, shapes of orbit, drawn in photon trails. These aren't messages, they're memories left behind in radiation. The spiral holds them, not to teach, but simply because it can. Deeper in, the spiral tightens, not in structure but in rhythm. The light grows dimmer, the strands more complex. Here, light doesn't travel in straight line. It curls, doubles back, spins in soft loops like fireflies spiraling in slow dance. We pass through one such loop, and the ship is bathed in soft blue-white shimmer. It lasts for 30 seconds, then it fades. We don't chase it. There will be more. This part of the spiral is nearly silent. The systems hum quietly, reading trace radiation from every direction. Each glimmer holds a slightly different temperature, a slightly different frequency. The ship records the slow interplay of waves as they pass through the hull. They don't disrupt, they whisper. Even the dust in this spiral moves slowly. Grains of mineral-rich rock drift in calm spirals, catching photons like slow-turning prisms. Occasionally, two collide, not with violence, but with a soft merging, like rain joining a puddle. The light bends around them as if reluctant to leave. Eventually, we reach the spiral's inner arc. It glows faintly, not brighter, but deeper. A warmth that doesn't touch temperature but lingers just the same. Here, light is nearly still. Some of it has been drifting for millions of years, held in orbit by the thickest part of the spiral's veil. We pass into it and everything slows, even sound, even thought. The ship's systems move to minimum power. The engines are off. We drift purely on inertia now, surrounded by light that barely moves. And then in the silence, we begin to notice something else. Faint patterns in the flicker. Not language, not repetition, just alignment. Every few minutes, several strands of light pulse at once, not in harmony, but in sequence, one after another, as if counting or remembering a rhythm long since past. The pattern is not regular, but it is. It repeats in variation, like notes played on the edge of memory. The spiral isn't communicating, it's feeling. We stay for a long time, hours perhaps, maybe days, drifting in a sea of light too slow to see, but too constant to forget. You may find your own thoughts changing here, slowing, calming, folding inward like the spiral itself. There's nothing to rush toward, nothing to fix, nothing to do but be in the glow. When we finally begin to drift outward again, it's almost imperceptible. The light grows thinner, the strands loosen, the cabin begins to darken by degree, not into blackness, but into simplicity, a clarity that follows light only once it's passed. We leave behind the spiral of slow light, not in haste, not in silence, but in soft return. Far ahead, something flickers, a point of blackness with light circling it, not fading light, not dying, a tight spiral, dense and strange, where time is said to bend and space forgets its shape, a spiral of paradox.
The shape ahead is unmistakable. Even without scans, even without light, we can feel it. A slow coil of motion so dense it tugs at the mind, not violently, but irresistibly, like memory pulling a thought to the surface. We've crossed many spirals built of ash, reflection, collapse, light. But this one is made from space-time itself,
stretched and twisted by gravity, so strong it no longer behaves like space at all. This is where the path of a star ends, not in silence, but in folding. This is where light bends until it forgets how to leave. We approach the outer edge of the spiral slowly. Sensors begin to return distorted data. Light stretched far into red. Signals delayed by microseconds. Gravitational lensing painting the same star in 3 places at once. It's not dangerous, not yet, but it demands stillness, precision, respect. The ship powers down its main drive, switching to passive drift. Every movement is measured, every turn pre-calculated, not out of fear, but reverent. The spiral forms from the remnants of a collapsed binary, 2 massive stars that orbited one another until their cores imploded, their combined gravity shaping a deep, curved corridor of space. Around that corridor, debris orbits in slow decay, forming tight, shimmering arcs that glow not with light, but with distortion. As we enter the outermost band, starlight from behind us bends forward, creating halos where there should be shadow. It's like watching glass ripple, not break, just stretch, curve, and change the way we see everything. We pass through a band of frozen gas, once part of a star's expelled shell, now caught in the slow downward spiral toward the singularity. It moves in slow ribbons, curling inward like threads of smoke caught in a drain. The gas isn't hot anymore. It's cooled but still glows faintly as particles within it are pulled apart at the molecular level. Not violently, not suddenly, just slowly undone, like a memory dissolving mid-sentence. Inside the next arc, fragments of matter orbit in impossibly fast ellipses, chunks of rock and metal drawn from shattered planets, stripped moons and asteroid belts, long disrupted. Each fragment sparkles as it turns, reflecting warped starlight back in curves that make the eye question depth. Some tumble end over end, others are perfectly still, their motion hidden by the speed of their orbit. The ship's path must curve now, following the edge of the spiral's influence, without entering too deeply. If we cross the line where escape velocity exceeds possibility, we won't come back. And yet it's beautiful, not fearsome, not cold, just precise. Gravity is the artist here. It has sculpted arcs and patterns into every stream of matter, turned dust into thread, turned space into spiral. And as we follow the path, we begin to feel something strange. A compression of time, not abrupt, not harmful, but distinct. Systems on board begin to report discrepancies. Seconds tick longer. Distance shrinks and stretches. Our own movement seems to ripple slightly, like skipping across the surface of a still lake. We are not yet near the event horizon, but we are near its effect. Further inward, we see the edge of the central distortion. A warped sphere of shadow where light no longer behaves. It doesn't go black, it goes curved. Around it, space coils like ribbon around a spindle. We don't move close. The ship halts at the safe limit, letting the curvature pass beneath us. From this distance, we can see the inner spiral turn, not a structure, but a behavior. Radiation arcs from matter falling inward, spinning faster with every pass, releasing a final shimmer before vanishing. The light here lasts only milliseconds, but space folds it into spirals that stretch across shapes. We pass a quiet field of cold iron fragments, pieces of a vessel perhaps, or a satellite once placed here to watch. They hover together, barely moving, caught in an equilibrium between the spiral's arms. Their surfaces are polished smooth by time. We drift past them, careful not to disturb the pattern. The gravity here is delicate, not violent. It pulls softly, persistently, like a tide that never recedes. Even our thoughts slow. You may find your breath deepening, your focus narrowing. There is no rush here, no urgency, only the slow, endless curve of things becoming something else. At the spiral's innermost reach, the distortion is complete, not violent, not dramatic, just gone. Space bends until there is no direction left. The light curves until it becomes a ring. We do not cross that line. We simply float near it, watching the last spirals of dust vanish into stillness. We don't need to know what happens inside. The spiral tells us everything through what happens before that moment. In the glow, in the arc, in the stillness. It is the pause before the breath ends, and it is enough. Eventually, we drift outward again, gently nudged by the edge of the spiral's turning. The distortion fades, time straightens, light returns to its familiar paths. The stars no longer rip. The silence changes, not because it has grown louder, but because we have changed in our hearing of it. Behind us, the spiral of gravity's edge continues to turn, not as a trap, not as a warning, but as a final beautiful slowing. A spiral made not from presence, but from approach. And now ahead, we see something shimmering in cool colors, teal, violet, pale green, moving in great curtains across the stars. A spiral of atmosphere, a spiral of breath.
We see it long before we feel it. The space ahead shifts from the deep, dense dark of the gravity spiral into something light, fluid, almost translucent. Wisps of gas trail across the blackness like cirrus clouds stretching into a sunrise. The colors are impossible to name. Soft blues that lean into silver, pale golds edged in violet. They twist in long, thin arcs, spiraling outward from a central source we cannot yet see. This spiral does not pull us in. It invites us. The difference is subtle but deeply felt. The ship coasts gently toward the outermost arm. Here, the particles are thin, barely enough to register on sensors, but they move with extraordinary grace. Every trail of gas curves gently inward, following wind-like paths shaped by subtle gravitational tugs and ancient star winds. We pass through one of these trails and the hull is momentarily coated in a faint, iridescent mist. It doesn't linger. It disperses like breath on cold glass. But in that moment, the cabin glows faintly, as though the spiral has welcomed us in. These clouds, we come to understand, are remnants, not of collapse, but of release. The floating skies that make up this spiral are composed of atmospheres lost to space. Planetary exhalations ejected in silence over millennia, caught in the gravitational curve of a forgotten system. No violence, no explosion, just slow drift. These are the size of moons pulled from orbit, of worlds stripped by stellar breath, of ancient biospheres gently undone. Yet they remain folded together by the invisible hand of motion, spiraling in on themselves like dancers moving in slow rhythm. Inside the outer arc, the gas grows denser. We pass near what must once have been the upper atmosphere of a terrestrial planet, now stretched into a delicate ring of oxygen and trace elements, so thin it barely holds together. Within it, tiny water crystals catch starlight and scatter it into long, drifting halos. They move in slow waves, stirred by invisible turbulence, not chaotic, but alive. Watching them, we're reminded of weather, not storm or pressure, but present. The kind of atmosphere that waits for something to pass through, simply so it can respond. We follow one such band of vapor as it curls inward along the spiral's path. The pressure is still too low to breathe, but the ship's environmental shielding begins to register chemical compositions not seen in deep space. Nitrogen, argon, carbon traces, even rare compounds, ammonia, xenon, helium-3. These are not all from the same world. The spiral has gathered them like a song gathers verses. And as we move through, we realize we are not just traveling through space. We are drifting through the breaths of lost worlds. Further inward, the gas forms layers like stratified currents in a calm ocean. Some move faster than others. Some glow faintly with ionization. Others remain shadowed. These are not random. They align themselves around old gravitational fields. Fragments of planetary cores, tiny moons, perhaps even ringed objects too small to be seen, but still strong enough to shape the sky around them. Each one acts like a brushstroke. Together they paint a spiral that moves not just through space,
but through air. Inside the ship, we reduce power further. We don't need thrust, we glide on currents now. Fine adjustments made by tilting our hull against invisible pressure differential. The experience is unlike anything we've known. We are sailing through the sky and space. In one region, the spiral thickens into a translucent bloom. A vast, curled field of pink and lavender clouds, light years wide. Likely once the upper atmosphere of a gas giant. It spins slowly, its motion barely detectable. But it hums, a low musical resonance passes through the hull. Not from mechanics or gravity, but from the oscillation of ionized particles, caught in the planet's vanished magnetic field. The result is a quiet tone, something between wind and voice, so soft you feel it more than hear it. We drift through this bloom for a long time, letting the sound shape the silence. Eventually, we reach the spiral's heart. There is no star here, no planet, just a soft central zone where the winds turn inward and then gently out again, like the calm center of a vast atmospheric gyre. Within it, the pressure rises just slightly, and the light forms soft columns that rise and fall with the rhythm of long-forgotten weather. Tiny flecks of crystalline matter drift downward here, collecting into slow vortices. The sensors report no threat. The ship simply floats, weightless within weight, still inside motion, and we sit with it, not to watch, not to study, just to breathe in present. This spiral is not made of what was, it is made of what was. Let go, released atmospheres, forgotten skies, the final graceful motions of worlds that did not survive, but whose air still turns in the dark. This spiral teaches not by mass or force, or even memory. It teaches by softness, the strength of surrender, the endurance of sky. When we drift outward once again, the clouds thin, the winds fade, the ship leaves no wake behind. The skies do not resist our departure. They simply continue turning, endlessly, peacefully, weightlessly. And now, far in the distance, we see something strange. Pinpoints of light in a tightly braided arc, like fireflies circling a thread, a spiral not of dust or gas or silence, but of signals, of thoughts echoing in tight formation.
The last spiral begins not with motion, but with a pause. A stillness that hums, as if the stars themselves are holding breath. We drift forward into a space where signals gather, pale threads of radio waves, optical pulses, whispering fields of static winding together in one final quiet coil. The space around us glows faintly, not with heat, but with soft activity. Transmissions looping in endless repetition, ideas encoded in particles long loosed from their origins. We are entering the spiral of final light. These are not broadcasts, not calls for help or declarations of presence. These signals have no urgency. They are residues, thoughts sent into the void long ago, not meant to return but meant to last. Messages from wandering probes, civilizations watching their last stars dim, explorers who placed a word or a wish into the dark. Each signal here travels slowly, curling inward along a path traced by gravity and intention. The result is a spiral of lingering light, not brilliant, not chaotic, but composed, like a poem whispered to the stars. We move through its outer arcs with care. Signals overlap, but do not collide. They drift past us, some quick, some slow, each carrying a tiny rhythm. Some repeat every few seconds, like a heartbeat in starlight. Others take minutes to return, rippling through fields of dust like echoes across a sleeping lake. Occasionally, a message resolves into something almost readable. A string of characters, a pulse pattern, a harmonic phrase. None are meant for us, and yet all feel welcoming. The spiral holds them not to explain, but to witness. The deeper we go, the quieter the transmissions become. Not because they fade,
but because they've grown more refined, encoded in ways that no longer require sound or light, just presence. We pass near a ribbon of neutrino signatures looping in perfect arcs, wrapping a darkened fragment of metal. The ship's sensors hum in response, not detecting, but resonating. These signals don't demand interpretation. They simply ask us to feel them, to be aware that someone once sent a final thought into the dark, hoping only that it would continue. Further inward, we find a lattice of pulses woven through a field of ionized mist. The pulses are soft, melodic, rising and falling like breath. They shift slightly as we pass, not in reaction to us, but as if they've folded us into their cycle. For a moment it feels like we are inside the message, not outside it. The glow around us flickers gently, like candlelight at the end of a long night. The ship's systems go still. There is no data to record here, only silence to accompany. At the spiral's heart, the signals slow nearly to stillness, not because they've stopped, but because they've been allowed to rest. Here, we find a field of soft, warm light, not from any star, but from radiation compressed so gently, so patiently, that it glows in place, like the last coal in a dying fire. It pulses once every few minutes, a perfect, slow farewell. We stop here, in that golden hut. The ship drifts without direction. Time no longer matters. The journey is complete. Around us, the final spiral turns without rush, carrying every signal, every reflection, every breath we've shared with the universe. And in that stillness, we understand, the cosmos does not speak loudly. It does not declare its truths. It spirals, softly, patiently, through memory, collapse, creation, silence. Each arc another gesture, each turn another breath. We have followed those breaths, one by one, through the fading paths of dying stars, and they have led us here, not to an ending, but to a place past ending, where presence remains. So we thank them, every spiral, every silence, every soft light in the dark. And now, we turn the ship one last time. The spirals behind us stretch like trails of dream and shadow and gold. They will keep turning long after we're gone. But for now, for this moment, we rest. Thank you for traveling this long, quiet journey among the stars, for drifting with us through light and ash, through reflection and resonance, through the breath of all that was and still is. Good night, traveler. Sleep softly,